Welcome and good evening to the City of Shakopee City Council meeting for October 20th, 2020. Item number 1, if we could call the roll, please.
Councilmember Whiting.
Here.
Councilmember Contreras.
Here.
Councilmember Lehman.
Here.
Councilmember Brennan. Mayor Mars.
Here, thank you. Item number 2, if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Moving to item number 3, approval of the agenda. And before we move forward, there are a couple of numbering issues on the agenda. I'm going to make note of those, and then we would let the agenda stand as modified and let the packet numbers stand. So I believe the first one is under consent. The last item is numbered 5D5. That should read 4D5. And also under general business is categorized as item 9, and so those subsets, all of them, they read with 8s in front of it. So 9A, we would change that to 9A1, 9A2, 9A3, and 9A4. Also, under administration, which is still in a subset of 9, that reads 8B1, that would change to 9B1. We can correct the agenda as I mentioned and then let the packet numbers stand on their own. Councilors? Councilor Whiting?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as modified.
I have a motion and a second by Councilor Brennan. Did you have a question too? Okay, second. Further discussion? Discussion by voice vote.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Lehman.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan. Mayor Mars.
Aye. The modified agenda, corrected agenda has been approved. Moving ahead then to consent business. Are there any changes, corrections, Mr. Reynolds?
No, sir, there are not.
Consent agenda. Councilor Brennan? You're on mute.
Sorry, I'd like to remove B1.
Okay. Others? Councilor Lehman?
Make a motion to move the consent agenda as modified. Second.
I have a motion and a second by Councilor Contreras. There would be no discussion. Before we vote, we would read the modified consent agenda into the public record. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. These are the consent agenda items for 20 October of 2020. 4A1 approves the City Council minutes for 6 October of 2020. 4C1 approves resolution number R2020-TAC124, which applies for a 2020 FEMA COVID-19 Assistance to Firefighters grant. 4D1 approves resolution R2020-TAC117, which applies for a Minnesota DNR State Park Road grant for Quarry Lake Park. 4D2 declares a 2001 and a 2002 Ford pickup truck, that's one apiece, as surplus and authorizes their proper sale or disposal. 4D3 approves resolution R2020-TAC113, which declares cost to be assessed and establishes a public hearing for the 2020 full-depth pavement reconstruction project, which is CIF TAC 20 TAC 004 for 4 November 2020. 4D4 approves Resolution R 2020 TAC 125, which approves plans and orders the advertisement for bids for the Memorial Park Bridge and Trail Improvements Project, which is PA TAC 19 TAC 09. And 5D5 approves Resolution R 2020 TAC 126, which accepts work on the 2018 sanitary sewer lateral pipe rehabilitation project, which is ASAN TAC 18 TAC 003, and authorizes final payment for $80,000, $80,077.20.
Thank you very much. I have a motion and a second for the modified consent agenda. The consent agenda has been read into the public record. There would be no further discussion by voice vote.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Lehman.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. The consent agenda modified has been approved. Thank you. Moving, then we would go to item number 5. Now I'd like to recognize any resident that would like to come forward and speak on an item not on the agenda. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and welcome on an item not on the agenda. Seeing none, then, we would move ahead to item number 6, business removed from consent. We did have AB1, a resolution of appreciation for Officer Greg Tucci. Counselor Brennan?
Yep.
Can't hear you.
I'd like to read it if I can. So resolution of a
Council Brennan, your internet is breaking up. We can't hear you.
Would you like me to read it?
Thank you, Counselor Whiting.
All right. A resolution number R 2020-127, a resolution of appreciation to Officer Greg Tucci. Whereas Greg Tucci began his law enforcement career with Shakopee Police Department, and whereas Greg was hired as a patrol officer with Shakopee Police Department in 1987, and whereas Greg's 3 children, Becky, Grace, and Luke, have supported Greg during his tenure at the Shakopee Police Department, and whereas during his tenure at the Shakopee Police Department, Greg has held many assignments as a detective, member of the SWAT team, and field training officer, and whereas Greg has received numerous accolades, letters of appreciation, and was selected by his peers twice for Officer of the Year award for the Shakopee Police Department, and whereas throughout Greg's 33 years of dedicated service to the residents of the city of Shakopee, he has embodied and lived the Shakopee Police Department's mission statement to provide services with integrity and professionalism, to protect citizens through enforcement of the law, and to work in partnership with our community to enhance the quality of life in the city of Shakopee. And whereas, as providing over 33 years of service, Officer Tucci will retire from his position as police officer on October 29th, 2020. Now be it resolved that the city of Shakopee, City Council of the City of Shakopee hereby accepts with regret the resignation of Officer Greg Tucci from the Shakopee Police Department effective October 29th, 2020, and be it further resolved that the mayor and the City Council of the City of Shakopee of Minnesota, Shakopee, Minnesota, hereby extends his sincere appreciation and gratitude for the dedicated service of police officer Greg Tucci to the city of Shakopee, and sends him their best wishes for happiness and a long, happy retirement. Adopted in regular session on the City Council, City of Shakopee, held on the 20th day, October 20th, 2020, assuming it passes.
Counselor Whiting, thank you very much. With that, we've read the resolution. I would entertain a motion.
I will try it. I would make a motion to offer resolution number R2020-127, a resolution expressing appreciation for and accepting the retirement of Officer Greg Tucci and honoring him for his 33 years of service to the city of Shakopee.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Contreras. Discussion, Counselor Lehman.
Mr. Mayor, as anybody that's been here for any length of time knows that I will probably be voting against this to be consistent. Anytime we have a stellar employee in our employment, it's hard to support letting them go. I realize he's retiring. It's certainly nothing personal to Officer Tucci, but I do want to be consistent and I don't want to see him leave. So therefore, I'm going to vote against it and I'd like him to stay.
Thank you for your comment. Counselor Whiting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize. The 2C, I always pronounced it wrong through all these years. I guess maybe that's why he didn't talk to me much. No, I'm glad we don't see each other, but I want to thank him. He's always been a stellar employee, like Councilor Lehman said, and these many years of service, I've always known him to live up to the motto of integrity and professionalism. So after reading that resolution, I think I'll leave it at that, but thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Contreras.
Thank you, Mayor. Today, actually, well, I was looking for something inspirational, I guess I was looking for. I ran into something and I thought it would be an appropriate time to read. In these times where things are so hard, right? So I found this and it says, for the time you took your oath, for the time you responded to our needs, for your service, for our security, for your bravery, for our peace, for our protection, for your courage, for our safety, for your sacrifice, for the times you left your family, for the times you risked it all, for all you did for our Shakopee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Counselor Brennan. All right. I think when I see these long-term employees entering retirement, I get a little jealous. But 33 years as a person, as Officer Tucci has served our community, speaks directly to the man, the person, also speaks to our city and its department, the police department, of long-term employees, a good place to work, involved in the community, and I tip my hat to Officer Tucci for the service that he's provided to our city, and I wish him the very, very best in retirement and going out on his terms, and that is something to be valued these days. So I have Councilor Brennan.
She's on
You're
mute.
muted.
You're muted, Councilor Brennan.
Okay. I apologize for that. I have a motion on the table and a second. Some comments have been made we would then vote by voice vote.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Lehman.
No, please stay.
Councilmember Brennan. Mayor Mars.
Aye. Thank you all very much and congratulations to our long-term employee that's retiring, Officer Tucci.
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
Yes,
Can we-
Councilor Lehman?
Can we take 30 seconds and have Councilor Brennan log out and log back in and see if that fixes her connection problem?
For her vote?
Well, for the meeting and for her vote,
Maybe doing that right now.
possibly.
What do we want to do?
He wants have her disconnect and reconnect to the meeting so that we can hear her better, see if it works.
Okay, thank you.
What was
Counselor,
that?
Counselor Brennan, it was suggested that maybe you disconnect and then reconnect back to this meeting and see if that improves your audio. Would you like to try that? Just give a few minutes here.
Okay,
There you go. We just held a moment of silence for you.
Okay, you wanna
sorry
do
about
a,
that. I lost power today and I think it
no,
messed up my internet.
that seems
so.
to be better, thank you. Thanks, Counselor Lehman, for bringing that up. Let's move ahead then to public hearing, 7A. Public hearing to assess hearing on delinquent garbage and refuge bills from Republic Service. And Nate will present, or let's,
Open them in.
before we do that, I look at a motion to open the public hearing. Counselor Contreras?
I'd like to make a motion. Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to open a public hearing.
Whiting, second.
Counselor Whiting on a second. Further discussion? 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 By voice vote?
Councilmember Whiting,
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras,
Aye.
Councilmember Lehman,
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan,
Hi,
Mayor Mars.
Aye. Thank you very much. The public hearing is now open. We all received an updated list today via email, and Nate will present. Welcome.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Nate Reinhardt, Finance Director for the City of Shakopee. Tonight, we have a public hearing on delinquent garbage bills. The city's designated garbage hauler is Republic Services. This process is something we go through on an annual basis to allow us to certify the charges to the property owner's property taxes. Reference to the city ordinance is here on the slide, but city ordinance does state that charges are the responsibility of the property owner. Per previous city council actions and our agreement with Republic Services, the city council has authorized the collection of delinquent garbage accounts in the city's designated organized collection area. As a result, it has eliminated the need for the service provider to stop services on delinquent accounts. This ensures that there's no interruption in service, and which could lead to higher level of illegal dumping. Republic provided the city with a listing of delinquent garbage assessments as of September 1st. All customers on this list have had multiple calls and letters about their delinquencies during the months of April through June. Letters were also sent out and modified that would allow the customers to make payment arrangements with Republic. Last year, at the start of September, we had 286 parcels for a total of $50,460 that were delinquent. This compares to 199 parcels totaling $42,744. We worked out a process change with Republic this year that they would only provide us a listing that had customers with a delinquent balance of $20 or greater. This eliminated a number of accounts with smaller balances from being part of the certification process. We were spending a lot of time on trying to track down $5 accounts. So those smaller amounts will still stay on Republic's books, but won't impact the city side of the equation. At the City Council meeting on September 15th, City Council set tonight as the public hearing for delinquent garbage bills. Following that council meeting, we sent out letters with payment instructions and information on the process of assessing these accounts. Since that meeting, we have received a number of payments and have adjusted the roll accordingly. Our updated list provides 143 properties totaling $32,723.93. This compares to last year's public hearing where we had 170 properties totaling $33,045. So this year, about 27 less properties with about $322 less than last year. And then again, you've been provided with the current assessments list, which includes all the payments that were made through today. Following approval of delinquent assessments, a $25 admin service charge will be added to each of these accounts. We will provide a second letter notifying the property owners of the assessment. The admin charge covers those costs associated with our process of going through and certifying the accounts. Property owners will have until November 20th to pay the assessment interest-free. Following that, the assessments will have an interest rate of 6%. So following tonight's public hearing, staff is recommending certifying the assessments of delinquent bills. And just a point of note that we have not received any written appeals.
Thank you. Questions of staff? This is a standard thing that comes forward before this council every year. Questions, Councilor Whiting?
More of a comment, maybe a question.
You speak up.
Looks like you've had better communication over 2020 compared to 2019. A little more people got back to you, at least with the assessment hearing. Did you change anything? Did you improve communication?
Nate?
Well, as I mentioned, so we are now only moving forward with accounts that were over $20, so the list that we were provided from Republic only had those amounts that were over 20. So as you can see, just from the initial list, we had a decrease there, probably about 80, well, it says 87, so around 87 properties that were probably under $20 that we would have to try to collect from. The other process change we made is instead of Republic sending out that first letter and having customers pay Republic, the city sent out that first letter, so it was more clear, hopefully more clear to the customer that they can pay us moving forward from that point in time. And Republic has been very easy to work with from an admin side as far as making these process changes and working with us to come up with a better process, I believe.
Okay.
Thank you.
More questions of staff? Councilor Lehman?
How much time is left on this contract?
Mr. Burkett?
Councilor Lehman, it expires at the end of 2021.
The end of the year of 2021.
So might we consider opening the system and not being a bill collector at that point?
Councilor Lehman, I think that's an issue that we certainly are going to discuss. Staff has been looking at this now for the last year, and we think we have some proposals that council may find more conducive to our future relationships, not only with waste haulers, but also with the public on this issue.
Mayor, the reason I bring it up is when you have free market competition, it tends to drive the prices down for the consumer. And if somebody doesn't like their service, they've got options to find a different provider. So.
Yep, well, this was a competitively bid contract and offers a single source for our community rather than multiple trucks. There's a lot of discussion in the metro area about this style of service or others, but it creates efficiency and effectiveness. These delinquent lists, I don't think really is a function of the service. It gets down to the landowners not paying their bill. I don't know how an open system that would affect those businesses directly. We assess it through taxation or through their taxes directly to the pure property owner. But we can see maybe down the line we can look at some opportunities when this contract is up. Other comments, questions? This is a public hearing. If there's Any resident that would like to come forward and speak on this item, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Have we received any electronic communication?
No, sir.
Counselors? Counselor Whiting?
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second.
I couldn't hear that. Counselor Whiting?
I said I'd move to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
And I second it.
And I have a second from Counselor Contreras.
Yes.
Further discussion? Discussion? Discussion by voice vote?
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Lehman.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan. Mayor Mars.
Aye. The public hearing is now closed. Let's move forward.
Mayor?
Counselor Brennan?
I make a motion to adopt resolution number R 2020-123, certifying assessments for delinquent refuse bills.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Contreras. Further discussion? 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 By voice, or Counselor Whiting?
Aye.
Cannot hear you if you're speaking.
I didn't have a question. Go ahead, move on.
By voice vote, thank you.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Lehman.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Let's move ahead then to item 7B, which is an assessment hearing on delinquent false alarms. I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing. Counselor Lehman.
Make a motion to open a public hearing.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Contreras. The public hearing is now open. Good.
Let's vote on
Oh,
it.
I'm sorry. By voice vote?
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Lehman.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. Now the public hearing is open. Good news on this assessment for delinquent false alarms. I think there was one or two, and both those have been paid. Is that correct, Mr. Reynolds?
That's correct, sir.
So this has been resolved. We were by law still had to have a public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Hold on. Mayor,
Yes?
we would still want to ask if there's any public input for the public hearing, even though
Yep.
it's resolved.
Thank you. So this is a public hearing. If anybody would like to come forward and make comment in regard to this agenda item, public hearing, please come forward and state your name and address for the record and welcome. Seeing none, now I would proceed.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Counselor Brennan? And Counselor
Second.
Contreras, second that?
Yes.
Motion to close the public hearing. I have a motion and a second. And further discussion? Discussion? Discussion, all in favor, by voice vote?
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Lehman.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. Public hearing is now closed, and actually there is no action needed to take on this item. Thank you all. Let's move ahead then to 8A, which is a workshop to review the responses for the RFQ for electric utility management. Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Kursky.
Mr. Kursky, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We had 3 respondents to the RFQ, so tonight you'll hear from each. They have a brief presentation they'll do, and then they'll be happy to answer whatever questions you might have. So first up is MMPA.
Okay. Good evening and welcome, Mr. Dahl.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council, Mr. Reynolds. It's good to be here. MMPA is the wholesale supplier to the Shakopee Public Utilities. MMPA also has a power plant which it recently constructed here in Shakopee and is very interested in the success of the Shakopee Public Utilities. And I am here today on behalf of MMPA and also as the head of a consulting firm which works for MMPA, which would provide the services that you have requested here in this case. What I'd like to do is on page 52 of your packet is our proposal. It is brief, and I would like to simply go through it and hit what I think are the most relevant points. We've organized our work into 3 parts: utility leadership and management, and then review of the electric utility, and then support of ongoing utility activities. MMPA would provide the leadership and management services to the Shakopee Public Utilities. Myself and Anju Ayer, who is our Chief Operating Officer, would be the project leads in this area, and we would work with you to define the mission, vision, and values of the electric utility. We think if you were to take over governance of it, the definition of those things is essential to making it work really effectively. And based upon those mission, vision, and values, we would develop proposed goals and objectives to meet the mission. We would propose regular reports that the utility manager would provide to the city administrator. We believe these reports would improve communication from the utility to the city. And from what we've read and heard and everything else, it seems to us that communication is the largest problem that exists in this situation. Now, we understand that Larry Koshier, the former manager of Rochester Public Utilities, is the interim manager now of Shakopee Public Utilities. And if you desired to have him continue in that position, we have a good working relationship and we could work with him. And we wouldn't find that as a problem. And we have experience, MMPA does, in working with him as we provided dispatching services for the output of the Silver Lake and Cascade Creek plants that Rochester Public Utilities had. In the review of the electric utility, we think there are certain things that should be done. We have experience in doing these things. We actually did a similar study for the city of Dover, Delaware. We would review the utility organizational structure, the staffing levels, rates, cash balances, utility transfer to the city's general fund, and the use of third-party contractors. And these are things I think that, at least for the most part, were called out in your request for proposals. And we would prepare a report that would describe the results of our review so that you could hold it in your hand, look at it, ask us questions about it, and come to understand at least what our thoughts were. And David Niles, who is here with me tonight, would be the project lead in this area, and he led the work for the city of Dover, Delaware. Then, in our third set of activities, we would support Shakopee in the performance of the ongoing utility activities. We understand that Shakopee would continue to perform most functions with its existing staff, and we would perform an initial review and report for each of these following activities, and it's a fairly long list, actually. But long-term electric system planning, engineering services, energy conservation, renewable energy options, rates and fees, metering systems, customer service, economic development, emergency response and mutual aid and regulatory management and compliance. And we would, as I think I've indicated earlier, provide oversight of these activities by reviewing utility staff work product and advising the city administrator. And Anju Ayer, again, our Chief Operating Officer, and Joe Fuliero, who is a Vice President of Avant, would be the project leads in this area. And Joe has a long 40 years of experience in utility operations. We have proposed a price. I note that the other proposers didn't provide the same kind of pricing information, so this is something we're prepared to discuss with you, and it probably doesn't really need to be something that I go through right now. And then we've indicated who our staff members are here. We have a large staff who have specific experience in each of the areas that are required in this case, and we have listed those people here. I wanted to give you just a little bit of background on MMPA. It's a political subdivision of the state of Minnesota. It was formed in 1992. It began providing power in 1995. It has an A+ rating from Fitch and an A1 rating from Moody's. So it's, financially strong. And when we look at the mutual aid issue especially, MMPA exists because 12 cities now work together to provide electricity and to support each other. And so that common purpose is something that could be served here as well in terms of support whenever mutual aid is required. And I think to a large extent it would happen anyway, as municipalities do help each other out with those sorts of things. Avant Energy, the firm that I run, provides all the managerial and operational services that MMPA requires. And for more than 35 years, we have provided, that is Avant, consulting and utility management services to municipalities, colleges and universities, Native American tribes, and large energy users across the country. We are a national practice, but we are headquartered here in Minneapolis. We also manage the Northern Illinois Municipal Power Agency, providing operating and financial management and advisory services for them as well. For Native Americans, we do things like utility formation, which is very similar to a municipal utility. That is a tribal utility would be. And we do utility management and distribution system planning activities for those organizations. And then I would note the Dover, Delaware work again, which on page 4 is described in a little more detail. Then we have provided services to the University of Connecticut for over 20 years related to power generation and distribution, and continue to do so to this day. So we have provided some references, and would like very much to work with you and to continue the relationship that we have. As you may know, MMPA and Shakopee have a contract for electric supply. That's a wholesale supply that runs for the year through the year 2050. And so whatever you do over, as it relates to distribution services, MMPA will continue to be your supplier through that time period. Great.
Mr. Dahl, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm very familiar with your organization. While I sat as a board member of the Shakopee Public Utilities, the organization is very well run and we do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are there other questions of Mr. Dahl and the MMPA? Can you make the view of the council members bigger or full screen for now?
I have a question.
Councilor Brennan?
There's been concerns about in the community that there's going to be a massive layoff if this referendum passes. Would you be utilizing your own staff, or would you be utilizing the staff that is currently in place to cover the day-to-day operations of the electric?
If I may, Councilor Brennan, we would be using the current staff. That is a decision that we went into this particular item after much thought, and the only thing that we're looking for in regards to this particular proposal is for essentially managing, much like a department head would with some support staff, of the electrical side of the utility. The personnel remain the same and will be used as the same.
If I could also answer, that's our understanding as well. And so what we were contemplating was providing higher level services and working to improve the reporting between the utility and the city. And we see that as a primary objective that we would have.
Follow-up question?
I have another one. Would you anticipate that if we brought you in, that there would be an increase in the rates that are currently being current for the current customer base?
So we have reviewed the rates and the financials of the utility, and we don't see any need for a rate increase. That is a governing body decision as to what rate should be charged. We are skilled at advising governing bodies on making those kinds of decisions. I would make this observation that the profitability of Shakopee Public Utilities Electric Department is very good. And given the high level of profitability, we would see no upward pressure on rates. And you would clearly have a question about whether the rates should be reduced.
Thank you. Other questions? Other questions? If not, Mr. Dahlen, thank you very much and your organization.
Thank you.
For your presentation today.
I stayed under 15 minutes.
Well, you have more time to talk if you'd like, but you did well.
That's okay. Thank you.
Michael.
Mayor and council, next up is Minnesota Valley Electric Cooperative, and
Okay.
they have their director here along with some of their backup stuff. Are there any specific questions?
All right, Minnesota Valley, welcome. We're glad you're here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Mr. Mayor, City Council members, Administrator Reynolds, and city staff, my name is Ryan Henches, and I'm the CEO at Minnesota Valley Electric Cooperative. On behalf of the Board of Directors at Minnesota Valley and the team at Minnesota Valley, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here with you tonight and talk about Minnesota Valley and how we think we can partner with Shakopee into the future. Now, we realize that the city and its residents have a significant decision facing them. My intention tonight is to provide you some overview of Minnesota Valley with the goal of providing you enough information to assist you in your decision process. Now, there are a variety of ways that we think Minnesota Valley can partner effectively with the city. We've tried to break them down into 4 basic themes. From our perspective, we can be successful because we're local. We're focused on the energy business. We have a proven track record, and we have a framework that we believe will be successful with the city moving forward. So first of all, from a local perspective, we're headquartered in Jordan. We're established in 1937, so we've been around for a while. Right around 68 square miles of service territory. On the screen, you'll see the outline of our service territory. Obviously, we don't serve all areas within that. There's a variety of Excel and other municipals as well, but that's the outline. Serve 9 counties, 43,000, or just around 44,000 members, 800 of which are Shakopee residents currently. Right around 100 employees and 57,000 meters. We're a combination of rural and suburban service territory, so it gives us a nice mix. Just a little bit about electric cooperatives. Electric cooperatives started because the utilities at the time didn't want to serve the rural areas. It was difficult to make money doing that. So through a variety of processes, neighbors helped neighbors and created the REAs and delivered power to the rural areas. So that's really our genesis, is neighbors helping neighbors, and that's really important to us today. Right now there's about 900 cooperatives nationwide, with right around 45 in Minnesota. Some of the important characteristics of a cooperative is we are a not-for-profit, which means anything we make in excess of what we need to run the utility goes back to our members on a yearly basis. We're governed by those we serve. So on a yearly basis, our board of directors, which is made up of 9 members, 3 of them are elected, and they're on a 3-year rotation. Those directors, our current group of 9, are very active in the communities, whether it be Rotaries, city governments, a variety of other places, very active both on the energy aspect, but also within the communities that they serve. Another important aspect, just like Shakopee Utilities, Minnesota Valley doesn't own generating resources. So we purchase from 3 different wholesale power providers: Great River Energy, Basin Electric, and Alliant Energy. We purchase from 3 because we believe that reduces our risk long-term and helps provide overall rate stability. So we're one of the few co-ops that actually has that number of wholesale power providers. When you think about Minnesota Valley, there's really a couple important items to start with, and that's really our mission and our vision. Those aren't academic exercises for us. Those are things that we live and breathe and think about on a daily basis. So our vision is to be our members' trusted energy partner, loyal to our communities now and for future generations. What's important about that is our decisions are driven based upon long-term. So we're not making quarterly earnings calls. We're focused on the long-term and making investments to support our communities long-term. Our mission is to create exceptional member experiences while safely providing reliable energy at cost. Now, the last 3, the safely providing reliable energy at cost, I think most utilities are going to have some form of that. Obviously, safety being a very important item. We really focus as well on creating exceptional member experiences, and that's something that we think sets us apart, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in depth later. From a local perspective, obviously our communities are very important to us. We're involved in local parades. We're involved in safety demonstrations locally. Last year we hosted the Jordan High School for a career day, walked them through a variety of different items. So we try to be very involved in our communities that we serve. We also have Operation Roundup, which our members are able to round up their electric bill on a monthly basis. That extra change gets added into an account and then distributed by our trustee board on a quarterly basis. So overall, since 1995, we've given back about $1.8 million to our membership. That happens quarterly basis, about $30,000 to $40,000 per quarter. And I know a number of Shakopee organizations have received money from this organization. So now I want to transition from being local to being focused. We're an electric distribution cooperative. We focus on understanding the wholesale aspects of energy, but then really on getting it from the substations to the meters and providing a good service from that perspective. When it comes to fundamentals, we think of a variety of items, but first and foremost is safety. If you don't get safety right, the rest doesn't really matter. And a night like tonight, we're thinking about our crews, hoping that they're doing the right thing, taking their time to make the right decisions. But that takes an ongoing culture, an ongoing discussion to ensure that that's taking place and they have the ability to take their time and make the right decisions. Engineering, we have a pretty large service territory. We have 29 substations, 2,000 miles of overhead, 2,000 miles of underground line. Construction budget this year was $15.3 million with a number of road moves and a variety of other improvements to our distribution system. So again, the planning, the implementation of an effective, reliable distribution system is something that we do on a yearly basis. When we think about our member experiences and how we interact with them, there's 2 things I'd like to talk about. One is first providing our members information. We provide members hourly, monthly, and daily information via website, via their bill, or via a smartphone app. That comes from an advanced meter system that was installed in 2008 and has served us very well. We've been collecting hourly data across all of our members since about 2008, 2010. So our perspective is once our members have that information, they can then make energy conscious decisions. And those might be reduce usage in certain ways. It could also be to participate in our energy savings programs. So first provide the information, then provide the programs. We have a variety of programs, our cycled AC program, water heater, space heating program, a variety of others I'll touch on in just a minute. Outage communication is an interesting one that has changed a lot over the past few years. You go back 10, 15 years, and it was simply a phone call to report an outage, and that was about it. Now, our members are able to look online at our website to see who's out, if there's an outage, can report an outage from their smartphone. We are also active on Facebook if there's larger outages, communicating what's going on. So we've staffed over the years in order to provide what we see as evolving member expectations in knowing the what and the why of outages. So this is something that we continue to focus on and have focused on for a while. Another item we like to highlight is our key account program. All of our members are important. Some of our members need a little bit more assistance with understanding usage. They have different requirements, and we want to be able to provide that service. So to some of our largest accounts, we have a key account program. That key account program is staffed by 3 people at Minnesota Valley. Our Vice President of Energy Services, Marvin Denzer, is here tonight, as is our key account executive, Joe Green. And we have one other that service that are on call essentially 24/7 to support those that have special energy needs. When you're focused on the energy business, you can also take steps towards innovation. I want to talk briefly about, in the center of the screen, you see a screenshot of one of our bills. So that's actual bill. You'll see that there's daily usage via the bar chart. You'll see that there's a line that shows the average temperature. You see the average daily cost, and you see a variety of other items. So all of our members have access to that detailed information, again, so they can make decisions. On the upper left-hand side, you see the Smart Hub icon. Minnesota Valley partnered with Google in 2010, one of, I think, 10 utilities nationwide to partner with Google. Initially developed an app for the phone. Google decided they didn't want to do it any longer, so we had to go it alone with one of our IT partners. Right now, Smart Hub is in use by about 500 cooperatives and a number of municipals, I think even some municipals locally as well. Upper right, Minnesota Valley was the first utility in Minnesota to have a Wi-Fi thermostat program that consisted of Nest and a variety of the other popular Wi-Fi thermostat programs. Just below that is a picture of a pie chart, which indicates our electric vehicle program. Again, with the hourly data that we can get from the meters, we can provide our members, which is a growing number, with off-peak rates overnight that are very inexpensive, about 5.5 cents a kilowatt hour versus the general service rate around 12 cents. If you go to the left, we're actually the first cooperative to have a prepay program, a pay-as-you-go program. This program works well for members that really want to focus on energy efficiency. Members on this program save around 10 to 12% on their monthly bill. And then the last one I'll talk about is our Green Source program. Green Source, Minnesota Valley's wholesale power portfolio is about 20% renewable. Members that want to increase that percentage can participate in our Green Source program, purchase renewable energy credits, and make that up to 100% renewable. So again, we start with information and then try to provide a variety, a portfolio of options, each that different members can take advantage of. So once we get past being focused on the energy business, I want to talk just briefly about our track record. Minnesota Valley in 2015 partnered with 12 other co-ops and purchased the Minnesota assets of Alliant Energy, an investor-owned utility. In 2015, then we started serving the cities of Montgomery and La Center. And over the years now, since 2015, have consistently gone through the process of analyzing what Alliant had invested in, making decisions about directions for the future so that we can enhance reliability through tree trimming, plant investment, ties between substations, a variety of things to improve reliability. Also bringing all of our programs, the information from smart meters and those type of things to those members as well. So that's been a focus, something that we continue to work with those cities on. And I also want to talk just briefly about a few other items. So I want to talk about, rates. Minnesota Valley's rates compare favorably to Excel, to the majority of the cooperatives within the state. They compare favorably to a number of the municipals. Obviously, Shakopee's electric rate is very low. On average, I think they're about $4 lower than Minnesota Valley. Now, I think the route we take, or the view we take, is while that's the case, obviously there are some structural issues where we have a much more, or we don't have as dense of a population as a city does, as Shakopee does. So that impacts that rate some. But also then we try to give our members, again, the information and then the programs to manage that. So by utilizing those tools, we think our members can manage that rate and be effective that way. From a reliability perspective, we're always looking for ways to enhance, improve reliability. Again, we compare favorably with all the various reliability stats. We've made investments over the last several years to continuously improve reliability, investments in tree trimming, which tonight I think we're very happy we did as the snow starts to melt. So a variety of things over the years we've done there. From a member service perspective, we measure our member service using the American Customer Satisfaction Index score, which is a national benchmark. Our score is around 86 on average, which compares favorably to most utilities, cooperative, investor-owned, and others. So we feel good about that. And then we've talked about innovation. Again, we think that our focus on the energy business, our focus on enhancing the lives, the members that we serve, I think has taken us down the innovation route, but we also don't go too far down the innovation route. So we do it when there's a business case and an applicable end that makes sense. So I want to talk about what we see as a framework for success with working with the city on this project. And the first thing that we think is important is to focus on the people. Business is about people. We see ourselves working closely with Shakopee Utilities. We need to develop the relationships there, understand what they're doing. We also need to develop the relationships with the city council, city staff, to make sure that we hear what the needs are, understand what the needs are, and then use our experience to help facilitate ways and paths forward. If chosen, we would use our subsidiary, Minnesota Valley Utility Services, as kind of the vehicle to do this. We call it MVUS. MVUS is a consulting organization. We consult to a variety of cooperatives, local municipals, and a variety of other organizations. Largely engineering-based at this point, that does a variety of different engineering tasks, but we also have the ability to utilize Minnesota Valley resources, safety directors, a variety of other people through that process, through that mechanism. So we would see that as the vehicle. We would have Joe Green as our engagement manager. Joe was, maybe raise your hand, Joe. Joe's back in the audience here. Joe's a key account executive at Minnesota Valley. He's a former customer service director at Owatonna Public Utilities. So Joe understands the municipal aspect, he understands the cooperative aspect, and we think that would work nicely as an engagement manager. He would be the single point of contact, and all things would go through him. Joe's responsibility would be to get whatever Minnesota Valley resource was necessary to assist in moving forward. Engineering services would be led by Kurt Court. Kurt's with us as well tonight. Kurt does the primary consulting right now through MVUS with the other organizations. So he has he's a professional engineer, has been doing this type of work for quite some time at this point. And then from an executive perspective, Marvin Denzer, our Vice President of Energy Services, is with us tonight as well. Marvin and I would handle the executive sponsorship. We would be as involved as the city would want us to be, or as Joe would need us to be. So that would be our perspective. That's the thought for how we can be nimble. We think that through this framework, Joe can get the necessary resources, work closely with the city and with Shakopee Utilities. So I'll just end by saying I think, my hope is when you think about our value proposition, what Minnesota Valley can assist with, you think about the fact that we're local. Actually, two of our vice presidents, Jerry Merrick, our vice president and CFO, are actually Shakopee residents. So we have a tie to the city. We're familiar with the city. We're focused on the energy business and specifically on the distribution side of it. And we architect these environments, we implement those environments, and then we live with them. So our decisions, we stick with, and we have to manage long term. We think we have a proven track record, variety of things that you can look at statistics that show that this is something that we have done, and I think we can do and help Shakopee, and the framework for success. So I think what we have laid out is a way that we can help Shakopee as much as is requested, and be flexible as we move forward. So again, just want to say thank you for your time tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Minnesota Valley and Mr. Henches, for presenting tonight. Do appreciate that. I have a couple questions about how you communicate. You talk about your members, which are your customers, but you're involved in many communities. How do you work with your relationships with those cities and the work that you do within their cities?
Sure. Yeah, right now, primarily that's through our key account program. So, Joe Green is our key account rep that works primarily with the cities, and it's different meetings, going to city council meetings if there's stuff going on. But again, making that contact so that the city knows if there's anything that's needed, he's a single point of contact, and he can help resolve whatever the issue is.
Another thing of my interest is you've mentioned a couple of major innovations that you've done, and AMI was one of them in 2008. I know our local utility looked and studied at that back in the mid-2000s as well. A little nervous about trying to be a early adapter back then. It's 2020 now, and we don't have that. And that is of major interest in me about giving the information to the consumer, having some rate structures that allows them to be flexible and make smart choices. You've been doing this for over 12 years. Is that effective with your customers? Are they using it, at least on an information standpoint?
Yeah, we believe so. We think our AMI system has really been the platform that's allowed us to take member service to the next level, whether it's through development of programs or just providing information. Honestly, there's times where as a consumer, you think your bill's too high. And if as a utility we can't answer the question, it makes it a difficult relationship, right? So by having this available, a member calls in and we can, our member service reps can walk them through on the screen. Okay, look at this on October 20th at 8 p.m., your usage spiked, and then it stayed up there. It's been interesting, the things that we've found that way, either wells, well pumps sticking, people leaving, even one interesting one was in the summer, they left on the roof, the little heater things, they left that on. So there are things that you can do with the data that's very effective from a customer service. Now, the reality is I don't think people look at it on a daily basis. I think it's something that if there's a question, they look at it, but then it's a very valuable tool.
For now, my last question is actually the integration that you took part in 2015 by Alliant Energy, and now 5 years later, what learnings have you had out of that integration and coming together with that?
Yeah, quite a bit. I think it was a difficult process. There's a lot of things you have to take into account. As you do it, what we try to do is always keep our new members in mind as we're making decisions. How is this going to impact them? Some of the learnings, there will be metering issues. One of the things that we discovered as we went through is a lot of metering issues. That winds up changing bills and becoming an issue. You find different utilities have different practices. You think one utility is the same as the next, and the reality is all of us have slightly different practices. One of the things that we found is the tree trimming had not been kept up, and that's something we invested in heavily. Another thing is just overall engineering of the system. Not to get won't get out of too far over my ski tips on this, but they had Alliant had done more fusing where we did more cutouts, so that if there was a single outage at one location, it didn't take out 40 people, it took out one person. So some of those type of things. The data, as you combine, as we did the combining the utilities, the data it took quite a bit to transfer and make sure that was accurate. It can be done, but those are some of the obstacles. The key, one of the keys is communication. When we did it, we had meetings with the public. We had open meetings so they could come and ask us questions, so they knew exactly what was going on. We also, our key account executives got out and met with all of the businesses to make sure they understood what was going on. So I think communication is the other real key.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Henches or MVAC? Councilor Brennan? You're on mute.
I'm sorry. I know that the customer base will really increase the amount of customers that you'll be servicing. Do you see that as any problem, or how will you handle the large number of people that would be coming onto the system?
Yeah, Councilor Brennan, my understanding is how things will be working with current city or current Shakopee municipal staff still being here and still supporting. I think from that perspective, it doesn't concern us. From the perspective of, I think we'll be able to do it without any issue.
Okay.
And just
I know that you are. Well, I'll start a different way. The area is in need of 2 substations, and one because on the east side it's a lease that's being not renewed, and on the west side it's for the growth of the community into Jackson Township and through annexation areas. So how would you evaluate the needs of those 2 substations, or even if they're necessary or not?
Councilor Brennan, as I mentioned, we have 29 substations. In the last few years, we've added, I think, 3 or 4 substations. So going through the process of determining where, what size, how to handle it, it's a complex decision. It's a decision we're very comfortable with making. We've gone through the process. We realize that a substation is a multi-million-dollar investment. Where you put it is critical because it helps with your overall reliability. If you don't put it in the right location, you've got a very large investment that's not providing you the benefit that you may want. So I'm not an engineer, so I don't want to talk, again, get too far ahead of myself, but I know we look at different loading, we look at loading information, projected growth, we look at the overall distribution system from a backfeed capability, so what substations can backfeed other substations to make sure that it's a network of substations that can provide the utmost reliability at a managed cost.
Okay.
I have another one.
Follow-up? Yep.
Today we had an outage that took some time, but that's not anything that is regarding the staffing. But I'm curious to know if we, and I think it's been a really big concern of the community that if there's a major outage in the community during this time, that nobody will be around to service the customers and people will be sitting in the dark. So how is your turnaround for handling emergency situations and response times?
I would say, Councilor Brennan, I would say our response time is very quick. I think we'd work with the Shakopee Utilities to make sure that they had the correct contact information. We have an on-call supervisor, 24/7, 365, who's a supervisor level at our organization. So it will be a one call to that person. That person has the ability to dispatch our crews. So the decision will be made there. Now, if there's a larger issue that maybe it concerns us, maybe something comes through and concerns Minnesota Valley, Shakopee, and others, we also have mutual aid agreements with cooperatives throughout Minnesota. So many linemen throughout Minnesota. And if it's really bad, we've got access to national cooperatives as well. So I think we've got, we can construct it so the response will be quick, and we'll ensure that process is clear.
And if I may, just to be clear, any response will be handled by Shakopee Public Utilities. If there is a larger need, then obviously the mutual aid agreements would come into play. But let's be clear, the same people, the same trucks, the same service are going to be occurring if the switch was to occur. The only thing that is happening is we're changing the leadership of the organization, replacing the commission with the city council, and in this very small slice of the pie, bringing in some expertise on the electrical management side of the house, not only to help manage the day-to-day 10,000-foot level of the electric utility, but also to analyze the utility itself and make a determination as to its status and its pluses and minuses, what it does well and what it could use assistance with. So same trucks, same people, same service, different leadership.
Thank you. Councilor Whiting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me?
You got to speak up.
Okay, good. I'm trying. Okay, I have a question. So currently, there's a power purchasing agreement till 2050. Now, correct me where I'm wrong here when I get to the question here, but with that agreement in place with the MMPA, I believe it is, how would MVEC, I mean, they're just coming in to manage it, but would we still be purchasing power through MMPA because we have this agreement with them, or would that have to be renegotiated?
No, again, there would be no change in that. There would be no change in 98% of what the utility does. The only change is in the management structure for the electrical utility, where we essentially are hiring a department head with support staff. Everything else stays the same. And that's for a limited period of time.
Does that help define your question, Councilor Whiting?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Other questions of Minnesota Valley, their representatives? Seeing none, Mr. Henches, thank you very much for your presentation and your packet information. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
And thanks for being here on a snowy night.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael?
Mayor and Council, I just wanted to reinforce what Mr. Reynolds said. So there's a 2-year window here that if the referendum were to pass, that this management group would come in and basically making recommendations back to the city council and looking at the infrastructure needs of the community. So I know Councilmember Brennan asked about substations, but also looking at automated reading, other technology that's already been implemented in other communities where best kind of in-class practices could be implemented here because they've already done it and learned all the lessons. So that's why we're here. The last presentation tonight is by Xcel Energy, which We have some people here, but the main piece, Mr. John Marshall will be doing remotely because he needs to be remote.
Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Mars, council members. Thank you very much for the time this evening. John Marshall with Xcel Energy. I had intended to be there tonight in person, tested positive for COVID yesterday afternoon, so definitely want to keep everybody safe. I do have colleagues that are in person, then a couple of additional colleagues that are remote as well on the call. So my thanks to Shakopee for making the adjustments a bit last minute. Really excited for the opportunity to present on behalf of Xcel Energy and really on behalf of our president and our chief operating officer, our CEO. We're really excited for the chance to partner with the city of Shakopee on their energy future. Again, my name is John Marshall. I'm the Director of Community and Government Relations for Xcel in our Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota territories. We're really pleased to be here tonight. As I mentioned, I have some colleagues along here with me. We have Kelly Block. She is our Regional Vice President of Distribution Operations. Kelly is on the Zoom call here as well with me. And then we have Troy Browen, who is in charge of our control centers across our 8-state enterprise footprint. Both Troy and Kelly have been busy the last 48 hours in preparation for the storm. We are in escalated operations right now and have seen about 22,000 customers impacted. We've had a little over 12,000 restored in just a few hours. And we have about 225 crews out there. So Kelly and Troy are busy on that front. Apologies that the three of us couldn't be there in person. We do have a couple of folks in person. Michelle Swanson. Michelle is our community relations manager for the Shakopee area and has been working in Shakopee for many years. And then in addition, we have a woman by the name of Heidi Benedict. Heidi is one of our senior directors in our operations area. Heidi is intended to be our loaned executive, and I will talk about that a little bit more at the conclusion of our prepared remarks here. And if okay, I'd like to give Heidi a quick minute to introduce herself at the end of our prepared remarks. So again, appreciate the opportunity to talk about our qualifications to manage the municipal utility should the voters decide on November 3rd to choose to dissolve. Just going back a little bit, Xcel Energy's roots, we started here in Minnesota well over 110 years ago, really at the infancy of the U.S. electric industry. And whether it is running some of the first rural electric lines to help grow the farming industry or building significant infrastructure to keep up with the booming economy of the post-World War II era, we are really proud of our history, which has been marked with partnership with our communities and our customers, all tried to shared growth. We have been actually serving Shakopee for many years as well, quite a few decades, beyond 40 actually. We serve both electric and natural gas in Shakopee. We have customers like CertainTeed and RAR and Valley Fair, Emerson Rosemount, Anchor Glass, to name a few. And we have a number of large customers that we serve. We have 6 key account managers that work with different customers today across the Shakopee footprint that we do serve. And then again, Michelle Swanson is our community government relations representative down there and has been working there for many years. We truly believe that Xcel Energy is the right organization for managing the utility for 3 reasons, if in fact the voters do choose on November 3rd. First, we are experienced in running a highly successful electric and gas utility. Additionally, we currently operate in Shakopee. We have existing infrastructure, existing customers. We're in Shakopee on a daily basis. Our employees are there operating our systems on a daily basis. So, and then lastly, we really have demonstrated how responsive we are to local needs with community investment. If I could ask the presenter to go back to slide number 2, I wanted to talk a little bit about our mission, vision, and values briefly. The culture in an organization really matters. And we are a large enterprise. We're a large organization. Despite our 110-year history, we are very, very large. We serve a number of communities. And really, no matter your size, what you do, if you're a municipal, a utility, a co-op, an investor-owned utility, a smaller or large business, or a nonprofit, culture really, so much success relies on the culture of an organization. And Xcel's culture really is anchored firmly in our mission, in our vision, and our values. They're really central to everything that we do, and they really drive so much of what all of our employees bring to work every single day. Our vision is to be the preferred and trusted provider of energy for our customers. We want our customers trusting us and preferring to have Xcel Energy. We strive every single day to exceed the day prior, and we want our customers very much pleased with the service that we provide them. Our mission is to continue to provide safe, clean, reliable services that our customers want, but at a competitive price. Cost competitive energy is absolutely important to all customers, whether you're residential, whether you're commercial, industrial. So cost competitive is absolutely critical, and we won't compromise on employee safety or the safety of our public. Safety remains our top priority as a company. And then ultimately our values, they do reflect our core beliefs as a company. We want to stay connected to our customers, to our communities. As I mentioned, safety remains a top priority. We're very committed to the customers, to our communities that we serve, and establishing that trust is ever important as it guides the work that we do each and every day. We can move to the next slide, please. A little background on the company overall. As I mentioned, we are a fairly large company, headquartered right here in Minnesota, again with Minnesota roots going back 110 plus years. We serve 8 states, but again, headquartered right here in Minnesota. We have a number of different elements that we are really proud about in terms of becoming recognized as a national leader. A couple that I would call out really speaks to our innovation. We're in the process right now of leading a number of demonstration and pilots that are underway to test advanced technologies. We've got a partnership with Panasonic Corporation on battery storage. We do a lot with drone technology, both in terms of using drones inside of boilers for safer inspections, drone technology for our transmission grid, which is really a more cost-effective and safer solution. In addition, we work aggressively towards advanced grid technology, robotic process automation, and more recently, as was featured in an article in the Star Tribune, we are undergoing, in a partnership with the Department of Energy, a very exciting hydrogen project, developing 100% carbon-free hydrogen from the excess energy in our nuclear fleet. So really excited about that project. And I would want to note before moving on here that when it comes to emergency response, the management of our system and ensuring absolute top reliability for our customers, our storm restoration really has been incredible. We're in the midst of it right now. In fact, I was monitoring, if you Google Xcel Energy outage map, you can see in real time the outages that are peppered throughout our service territory here across the collective metro area. And you can understand in real time how many customers are affected, where crews are at, and where we're responding in real time. That's an example of some of our customer enhancements that we've made over the years as we try and improve our customer experience. We can go to the next slide, please. Xcel Energy as a company is really driven by 3 priorities. Everything that we do is pushing 3 priorities. We are always striving to lead the clean energy transition. We have many decades of pursuing a successful strategy to transition to cleaner energy. And we are continuing to do that moving forward with more recent announcements of being the first utility to reach 100% carbon-free electricity by 2050. We always are searching to enhance our customer experience. Our customers want to be served by their customers, not just by energy, but by products and services. They want to know more about the energy that they utilize every day for their homes and their businesses. So we're striving to enhance that customer experience every day. I'll talk about that in a minute here. And then again, all of this is imperative to balance with cost effectiveness. It is imperative that we keep our customer bills low in everything that we do. So those are Xcel Energy's 3 priorities that I'll speak to briefly here. We can go to the next slide, please. This graphic will be showing where we are heading as a generation mix in terms of our upper Midwest generation fleet. Today, we have a mixture of various generation sources, and as we look to 2030, we have an intermittent goal to achieve 80% carbon-free electricity by 2030. And that will include a significant additional investments in wind and solar, the reliance on our carbon-free nuclear fleet, as well as the maintenance of our natural gas for reliability here moving forward. Go to the next slide, please. Our customer experience is absolutely critical. As I mentioned, it is our second priority that I had noted earlier. What we're really trying to do on a daily basis is empower our customers with the information that they want and they need. Xcel Energy has an incredible mobile application. All of our customers have access to real-time information about storms and power reliability, the collective outage map in real time, billing information. They can pay their bill online, they can pay their bill mobile, energy savings tips, energy efficiency tips. We actually offer more than 150 different energy efficiency rebates. Last year, issuing over $44 million in energy rebates in Minnesota alone to customers across just the state of Minnesota. So significant investments. We do that for very intended successful reasons. To date, we have avoided having to build over 13 mid-sized power plants thanks to the amount of energy efficiency investments made by our customers and by ourselves as a company. So we get to reap significant benefits and save on that capital moving forward. We can go to the next slide, please. As I mentioned, energy affordability remains a very top priority for our customers. Again, does not matter if you're residential, commercial, industrial. Everyone needs to keep their customer bill, their bills affordable. So we're really proud of keeping that as a priority, and that we've been able to balance the investments in clean energy in enhancing our customer experience in everything we do. The investments that we have made in our clean energy transition, we have set the targets to make those investments at without having our rates go up at or below the rate of inflation. So we're really proud of those targets and continue to keep those centered as we move forward. Go to the next slide, please. A little bit larger background about Xcel Energy with respect to the regulatory bodies that govern everything we do. Xcel Energy really is the most regulated company in the state of Minnesota, and we're among the most regulated industries in the country. In Minnesota, we are governed by the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. They look at everything that we do with respect to our rates and how we operate. There's really, we have full transparency in everything we do and a number of different mechanisms for public input, both at the official regulatory level and with a number of additional bodies as well. Other agencies such as the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, the MISO, which is the Mid-Continent Independent System Operators, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, a number of regulatory bodies do have oversight. But for Xcel Energy, when it comes to anything that we do, we are always trying to proactively engage with our communities, with our stakeholders, with our customers, as we strive to enhance that customer experience. In Minnesota, we do serve over 400 communities. Every single one of those communities has a dedicated community and government relations representative that works with the cities on a host of issues, whether it's their energy vision that they're trying to achieve, or storm response or emergency response, any host of issues in partnering with the city. Those community and government relations managers are right there front and center, representing the company, working closely with the city, serving on boards in the communities each and every day. Go to the next slide, please. We do as a company have a very, very deep bench of experience. On an engineering front, we do have generation, we have transmission, we have distribution. We have a comprehensive strategic long-range plan for how we serve our customers. In fact, every year, every couple of years, we file an integrated resource plan with the state of Minnesota that indicates what our 15-year outlook generation fleet should look like. We have 5-year capital plans, most recently in 2020, $270 million invested for our distribution and our substation facilities. And as I noted before, on energy efficiency, $44 million in rebates issued just to Minnesota customers alone last year. We have a number of voluntary renewable energy programs as well, because although we're cleaning up or decarbonizing our generation fleet at a pace and at a speed that we believe is prudent, there are customers that want more and faster. We have voluntary programs to allow them to do that. We can move on to the next one, please. As we dig into Xcel Energy's footprint within the city of Shakopee, it's important to note that we have significant infrastructure broadly, just in the 3 states that we oversee in the upper Midwest here. In Minnesota, North and South Dakota, we have over 7,700 megawatts of generation, 33,000 plus miles of electric transmission, and 80,000 plus miles of distribution. We have 385 substations in Minnesota alone. Significant infrastructure, significant experience in managing and operating and investing in this infrastructure and ensuring that our customers enjoy the reliability that they have each and every day. 99.9% electric reliability in our Minnesota footprint here. That statistic comes, it's part of the average system availability index. And that's a measure of the percentage of time for customer reliability. So we're very proud of that. Customer reliability remains paramount for our customers. The photo in this slide is a picture of the Blue Lake Generating Station, which is located in Shakopee. It's our generation facility that we have right there in the community. And heading down to that next slide. As I noted, significant infrastructure in Shakopee. The Blue Lake property is 127 acres. It's a very long. There's a number of staff at the plant that are there daily working to manage and engineer the facility. SPU actually interconnects into our system at the Blue Lake substation. And we operate, maintain the city's substation facilities located at the Blue Lake substation. So, and in fact, SPU interconnects today to our transmission system at several different locations. So we're very familiar with the existing infrastructure that SPU owns, as well as, again, serving a number of customers in Shakopee already today. You can go to the next slide. We included a just kind of an overlay map to provide a visual. This is an approximate outline of the city boundaries in black. And the red lines there show Xcel Energy's high voltage transmission network that does interlace throughout the city's boundaries. And the other colors there show our overhead and underground current distribution facilities in the city. What this is trying to show you is, again, we really are hand in glove in the city of Shakopee today with our infrastructure. And so in addition to existing customers that we serve, we have significant existing infrastructure all throughout the city. We're very familiar with the city and could, I think, manage the city's energy utility well in concert with the city via the management agreement. We can go to the next slide, please. I do want to note that, again, I mentioned a couple of times that we are a large corporation, we're a large company. Communities matter. Every single one of our communities matter very much to us. And Shakopee is absolutely no different. We have a dedicated community relations manager, again, Michelle Swanson. I know she's in the audience there tonight. She's a member of the Shakopee Key Leaders Forum. We've been investing in the Chamber of Commerce down there for many years, over 20 plus years. It is really important to stress that communities are critical and important. Every community is different too. They have different needs and wants and desires for the utility. And it's important that we listen and partner. We strive to do that every day. Go on to the next slide, please. There's also some great opportunities, showcase opportunities of partnership worth mentioning. We had a recent partnership with the city of Shakopee on the mountain bike trail. That was a great piece of synergy and a great idea. I think there was a significant need for a mountain bike park. We had some additional land adjacent to our Blue Lake substation and power plant there. It was a great partnership with ourselves, the school district, the Shakopee Midwauketon, and the city. It's just a great example of our partnership that we always look towards for our communities. Excited to eventually get my bike out there at some point. So again, another touch point that I wanted to note. Go to the next slide if we could. Our existence in the city right now does reap some economic benefit to the city just today, and I thought it was worth noting. We have nearly $2 million in supplier spend for our supply chain investments as a company with suppliers that are in Shakopee. And of course, we have our franchise fees and property taxes that benefit the city, the schools and the counties down there as well. Go to the next slide, please. In summation, I want to note that there are, again, the reasons as outlined tonight. Xcel Energy has exceptional experience and truly does exceed the requirements needed as outlined in the RFQ. We have existing customers in the Shakopee footprint that we work with every day. And we have a significant infrastructure that interlaces across the city. So again, deep familiarity and really a daily presence in the city today. So it would be a fairly easy transition to provide support via that management agreement. And again, centrally focused there is our community. community is everything to Xcel Energy, and I will say that Shakopee really is a growing dynamic city and really in need of a 21st century utility. And I'm excited at the opportunity for Xcel Energy to support the city in the management opportunity for the next 2 years here. Go to the next slide for questions. And before I do, as I mentioned before, Heidi Benedict, our senior director on our operations side, how we envision partnering with the city if in fact the voters, and we do want to respect the purity of the vote, if in fact the voters do on November 3rd decide, and then the city does engage in the next process to make their decision for who they will partner with on their management agreement. We envision having Heidi Benedict come in as a loaned executive, and we'll work with the city on those terms to make sure that they work for both the city and its customers. Heidi's got great dynamic experience. She's nearly a 20-year resident of the city of Shakopee. She'd be a perfect person as our loaned executive to bring the full depth, breadth, and support of the entire company. So while Heidi would be the face, the day-to-day person working hand in glove with the city, she would have the full support of the entire company of Xcel Energy, whether it's design or engineering or substation or transmission operations, emergency management, vegetation management, really our key accounts, anything that needs to be brought to bear. So those were my prepared remarks this evening. And if you'd entertain me, I'd like to have Heidi offer a quick bit of introduction, if that would be okay, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Thank you very much for your presentation and do appreciate it. Do you have some more follow-up comments?
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Heidi Benedict, currently a 20-year resident of the city of Shakopee, actually served on the city of Shakopee's environmental advisory committee from 2003 to about 2012.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I am just here tonight and excited about the opportunity to work with you. Just to give you a little bit of background on my experience, I started with the company almost 28 years ago. So I've been with Xcel Energy for 28 years. I was in the environmental department for about 10 years of that, got a lot of environmental compliance experience, moved out to the power generation side of the business, was a plant manager at the Minneapolis Riverside coal plant, moved down to the Wilmarth plant in Mankato, was the plant manager down there, and then was also the plant director at the Highbridge combined cycle plant in St. Paul. So I've got some generation background experience. I also just recently, over the past 5 years, helped the company to oversee implementing, with innovation. I implemented the SAP work and asset management software tool. We implemented that across 8 states in 5 different operating units, and I led up that effort on behalf of the company. And currently, I'm serving as a senior director in performance and process, and also a chief of staff to the chief generation officer, Tim O'Connor, as well as support services to our chief operating officer, Bob Frenzel. So I just wanted you to have a little bit more background on myself.
Thank you.
Excited about the opportunity.
Great presentation. Questions of Xcel, their representatives? Councilor Brennan?
I do. I have just a couple. I think your presentation was very good and thorough. Shakopee is a very growing community in residential and in businesses. And are you able to work with the staff here at Shakopee to develop a complete plan that's needed for it to incorporate this growth and to support the goals of the city?
Yes, Mayor Mars, Councilmember Brennan, that is absolutely our full intention. We have obviously identified our best talent in Heidi to lead the partnership with Shakopee and the city of Shakopee moving forward. We've mindfully built in some fluidity and flexibility and some unknowns. Certainly mindful that we're dealing with a unique situation here, a public vote, an existing entity, and ultimately the conclusion of which would result in a management utility. In our case, we're hoping Xcel and the city. More than happy to get into detail at that time, but without a doubt, fully prepared to look towards what the city needs, its growing customer base, and really fulfill all the expectations that residential customers are having, as you noted. I would say that energy customers, if I can ad-lib for 1 second, customers in particular really we're seeing increased interest from our residential customers on energy. Where does it come from? Not just how much does it cost and does it stay on? Those are table stakes, but where does it come from? How can I make changes? What can I make and what investments can I make in my home from a building envelope standpoint, energy efficiency standpoint? There's just a lot more interest that they have and customers are entitled to have. And so we would be prepared to work with the city on what you have requested.
I just have one more question, and it's regarding deposits. And I'm curious to know, do you require deposits from customers when they establish, or when they re-hook up and establish a new line of power?
Mayor Marks, Councilmember Brennan, I'm not entirely clear on deposits. Are you saying a financial commitment to sign up? My understanding, having actually just moved into my parents' old house, when I switched services, there's no costs. Residents don't see new costs when they do new residential hookups. So is that focused on your question, Councilmember?
Yeah, in residential and in businesses.
Correct. For Xcel Energy System, that would be correct. Now, again, it would take part of the RFQ calls out as the assessment, if you will, of the operations and the functionality and the overall protocols and procedures of the Shakopee Public Utilities. So how that is currently done today would be looked at and evaluated with the city if changes are needed. For Xcel Energy, there are no costs for residential hookup.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? I guess I want to thank you, Excel, for your involvement and goodwill in our community. I think that goes a long way. You obviously have a big presence. I know the Excel mountain bike trail will be great. You seem to have a passion for innovation and technology for the future. Also, it looks like you have some things that, for the ease of the customer service on the different abilities to connect directly with your customers for notifications and such, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members.
Councilor Brennan, did you have another question?
Nope, I'm just saying thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you to all the companies that participated and presented tonight. Really appreciate it. I think it's actually, from my perspective, very, very unique that we're looking at a possibility of an opportunity for high-level leadership and governance of our utility based on the outcome of our referendum. Again, we want to keep our people, all those things is important to us, and if the referendum is successful. So we're looking at leadership, oversight, analysis. We, I think, in our community want the very best. The uniqueness of it is the Shakopee Public Utilities relationship with the MMPA and their wholesale power that they provide to their members. Then we have a co-op that's kind of like the same, right? They contract for wholesale power. And then we have an investor-owned utility, which is large, and they produce power and transmission power and have a very large facility already in our community and serve a large portion of our industrial base. So I think it kind of real unique here. And we appreciate you presenting. I think this is about our utility and our future. This on the power side, as I mentioned, from my perspective, is trying to find a way to lead the way in technology, ease of customer service, et cetera, and then just the leadership of the organization. And that's kind of my comments for that, and we will see what comes of our referendum and move from there. Mr. Reynolds, did you have any closing comments?
Yeah, just a few, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, everyone who presented and members of council. you know, one of the things that some concerns that have been expressed in the community are talking about, you know, the utility is in Shakopee, and that, you know, like many communities, they don't like the idea of outsiders coming in. What is remarkable here is that all three of these organizations are integral to Shakopee already today. The MMPA has a long-term relationship with SPUC. SPUC is, I believe, the largest member of MMPA. And it has we have one of the MMPA generating stations here in the city. MVEC, not only neighbors, but also serves residents already, and clearly understands the area, headquartered in Jordan, just down the road, and clearly well-known in Scott County. And Excel is actually the largest load energy delivery company in Shakopee. And they also have a generating station here, and then also have a long history of being supportive of the community as a whole. All three of these organizations actually have employees, and in some cases with MVEC board members that live in Shakopee. These are all Shakopee organizations. And that's critically important because they don't have to come in here and learn the lay of the land. They know what it is. Any of them have that ability. The interesting thing to me, and Mr. Dahlgren noted it specifically about the profitability of SPUC currently on the electric side, and said that, you know, not only would there not be a rate increase, there might take a look at a rate decrease. Well, let's talk about that $1.75 million that we know we can get by not filling positions that are currently open, and then with other efficiencies that Mr. Reinhardt has outlined previously in our last council meeting, savings that we can get per year, and that is without even being in the building analyzing the efficiencies that can come later in time. So I would put this out to the community as a whole. We have an opportunity to really change the way that Shakopee Public Utilities does business, but more importantly, it can be more efficient, it can be more effective, it can be more cost relationship to what we're putting out there for our ratepayers to pay. It's a big question, and I would hopefully encourage everyone to look at the facts. Look at the facts, and not simply look at what I would call, in a very generous note, the speculation that is occurring in the community in some sectors. Those are my comments, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Other questions closing here as we move forward? If not, thank you all very much. Do appreciate it. Our city council meeting will move ahead here. And we are on item number 9A1, which is an update from the Minnesota Valley Transit Authority. Welcome. Peggy Sue will present.
Yes, thank you, mayors and members of the council. I'm just going to introduce Luther. He's the executive director of the Minnesota Valley Transit Authority. They are our transit provider, and he is joining us via Zoom tonight because of the inclement weather. And they just have a short presentation about transit, especially in the year 2020, where we're seeing transit be really impacted by COVID, but they still have some really exciting things going on. So Luther, please give us an update.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Go ahead and start. Just
welcome.
Respect for everyone's time. Well, I can't control it. I guess you have to control it. Next slide for me, please. Can I control this? All right. Just a quick overview. We'll do about service overview. We'll talk about some ridership and fare box recovery. We'll give a quick update on what we're doing with COVID, as well as a last, we'll talk about a service update. Next slide, please. just to get context of the services that we do provide in Shakopee, we have 2 local routes, which is the 497 and the 499. We also have express routes to serve Minneapolis, St. Paul, which is the 490, 491, 492, 493, 495, which is our suburban express that goes to Mystic Lake and Amazon, as well, and Marshall Road Transit Station, as well as our Route 498. The newest service that we have, the service at Golden Triangle. Some of the key destinations that we do serve in the Shakopee area is the Mystic Lake Casino Hotel. A little bit outside of that, Amazon Facility Center, Canterbury, Scott County Government Center, St. Francis Medical, as well as downtown Shakopee. Next slide for me. Overall, when we look at our ridership for, we'll talk about 2019, we had almost 2.8 million rides for 2019. Obviously, when it comes to ridership on a month-to-month, we break it down. Our best month is normally August, traditionally because of the state fair. As you know, there was no state fair this year. Just seems, and there's snow today. So as you see, the season has definitely changed. We're hoping to obviously see that back next year. And we'll give a snapshot of where we're at currently today in 2020. Next slide. Overall, when it comes to fare box recovery, just want everyone to understand that Minnesota Valley is comparable with the region. When the Met Council puts out, looks at fare box recovery, sometimes they'll publish a number that says it's 23% for Minnesota Valley because they don't include actual public-private partnerships in their calculation, which should be included in our calculation. Should be included in their calculation because that's part of our fare box and why we operate those routes there, and that's how we submit it, obviously, to the feds. But we are unique in the region that we are the only provider, I think, in the entire state, but definitely in the region that does have public-private partnerships with private businesses like Amazon and Mystic Lake Casino. That brings our fare box recovery all to about 27%. Traditionally, to understand that the best routes when it comes to fare box, best route type for fare box recovery is express service. Express service usually has about a 30 to 40% fare box recovery. Local service being the least. When it comes to fare recovery, anywhere between 10 to 15%. So what you'll see from suburban providers across the board is the bulk of our service is express service. We tend to have higher, really competitive, if not higher, fare box recovery region-wide. When it comes to a snapshot from 2019 and today up until August, looking at ridership by trip, by service type, excuse me, it's important to understand that obviously the pandemic has caused a dramatic loss in our particular ridership. What we're currently seeing is the majority of 2020 express ridership actually occurred January through March, because as you know, in March there seemed to be the shutdown. Currently today, we're about 40% of our ridership is related to us suburban local ridership. It's important to understand that when we look at across the board, the region metrics across the board, about 55% of pre-COVID levels of ridership now is what we see on our suburban local service, and that's region-wide. Minnesota Valley is no different. Express service region-wide has taken a nosedive, same thing for Minnesota Valley, of upwards of 90%, because those large businesses downtown simply have not reopened or still working from home. But customers still need to get to where they have to go, especially when it comes to suburban and the local markets, where it's going to grocery stores, medical appointments, things of that nature. So we've actually continued to see very nice as well as a comparable increase in ridership in our suburban local. And the best percentage of ridership pre-COVID to today, region-wide, is actually our Route 495, which we consider suburban express. That currently has about 70% of the ridership it had pre-COVID. Those individuals are still going. We'll break that down as I go into the next slide here. Next slide for me, please. So what we've seen for our Route 495, understanding this route still accounts for over almost 5% of Minnesota Valley's total ridership. It has done a quick recovery compared to other service routes, primarily due to the fact that individuals who utilize this route, like whether it be Amazon, especially, that shift work and that cannot be done at home, as well as we definitely seen a dramatic increase in ridership when Mystic Lake Casino opened back up in mid-May. What we're seeing from a COVID perspective, just what we continue to do on our buses, we continue to adapt to the recommendation of CDC. We like to talk about that that with the CDC through the FTA, which is the Federal Transit Administration, there are guidelines and recommendations they put out for transit operators and how we should clean our buses, what products they believe are effective to use, whether it be COVID-19. In the past, it was SARS, swine flu. We've done this quite a number of times. This is the most dramatic, obviously, we've ever seen in our nation, as well as our transit industry. We continue to promote social distancing on our buses. We've limited our capacity. We do change our air filters daily on our buses, which supersedes recommendations. We've actually installed plexiglass barricades. I think we've all seen the plexiglass barricades now, whether it be a grocery store or what have you. We have them on our buses to protect the operator, as well as from the customer compartment, as well as we actually have installed UVA HEPA filters, UVA lighting HEPA filter cleaners in 2 of our bus garages, as well as in our Burnsville transit station to further filtration, to further filter out and obviously clean the air from any type of airborne pathogens. Since we've continued to see this space with the governor's mandate when it comes to wearing masks on all public facing facilities, what we wanted to do is we wanted to turn into a positive. There's been all this, there's been a lot of chatter back and forth about masks and what have you, but what we decided to do was, in a positive spin, was like, hey riders, we want to see your masks. What we encourage our riders to do is when they're on our bus, to take a selfie of themselves on the bus in the mask and put it on our social media. And that, what we'll be doing from now until October, because it's almost ending, we'll probably continue to extend it. We'll be picking a couple of those customers out randomly and providing them with $25 gift cards. So that's been going extremely well. And it's a good way to encourage without necessarily having like the negative stigmatism which resided from wearing the mask perspective. Just a little bit about the continued service impacts that we continue to have. In March, we had a number of route suspensions. We talked about overview what routes were there. We'll get into like what's still operating, what's not. And in June and September, we've introduced service back. Currently today, we're running about 59% of our base schedule from pre-COVID as of October 20th. MVT stations today are still closed to customers, but as it gets colder, vis-a-vis today, in the next few weeks, we'll probably open those back up. Our Route 497 and 499, our local service in Shakopee, that is running limited. We'll talk about the new weekend service, because even with all this, there's still a need for new services, and we've tried to put those out based on what we see customer demand and customer need. Our 490 and 493 are running limited. That's our express service in downtown Minneapolis. But our 495, as I said, it's doing extremely well. Ridership, that's running regular service, as well as the new service throughout 498, which serves the Golden Triangle, still running regular service. From a breakdown perspective to look at overall, compared to this snapshot of August of 2019, as opposed to August of 2020, overall, we've seen about a 60% decrease in overall ridership, primarily related to our express customers, and those businesses still being closed. But we have continued to see that trend line continuing. I've seen that deep fall off in March, continuing to move up, but we hopefully it'll continue to move in that positive direction. From a service, next one, service update. So it's not all doom and gloom. We do want to talk about that there are new services. One of the great things that we've seen, as we talked about suburban local being something that continued to perform well, and there's need for additional suburban local. We actually implemented this past September a weekday service in Shakopee. So now the 497 and 499, they run now Saturday and Sunday. On ridership numbers for the first weekend were about 50% of normal weekday levels, which is a good indicator for a new service. So that means about 50% of people who would ride it Monday through Friday rode it on that first weekend. So that definitely shows us there is some really, really good, ridership potential in that service standpoint, because it's individuals who utilize those services to so many of the local businesses in the Shakopee community, as well as now we're seeing we have the ability to go to shopping, to church, etc. Our community, we have a community liaison, Christy. She contacted, I think, every business in Shakopee when the service started. I think she told me she talked to the guy at GameStop and said that was the best news he heard since the PS5 was going to be released. So that's been very beneficial for us, and numbers tend to bear that out. What we also did is we did some early coordination with Scott County to serve the Scott County Government Center. This led to inclusion of bus enhancements along Atwood Street. Expected completion of that's going to be May of 2021, and that would be served by the local 497 to be routed to serve the new bus shelters and provide more direct connection to the government center, which was very beneficial because we didn't have that. We did not have a really good shelter as well as connection point in the past. So we're really excited about that. As far as transit innovation, one of the things I do serve on, this is pre-COVID, we've been adapting, it's on the federal, there's what's called the TCRP, which is a Transit Cooperative Research Program, and that's funded by the Institutes of Science under FTA. I've been serving on this panel for practice of transit planning for small and mid-sized agencies. It's about 5 or 6 counterparts from medium-sized small agencies, a couple of different projects in Iowa, as well as a couple other cities around the country. We've been looking at different innovative practices for planning for transit. One of the things that we've continued to see as we put into this whole COVID lens, because I was pre-COVID, was we looked at the 495, looked at that particular model, as well as some transit studies. It's been really interesting to see how I've been on that panel, how we're going to look to adapt to some of those things that we've learned from that and implement in our own service area, which is to fast forward to the last slide here, which is our transit study. We have talked about doing a system-wide transit study since I first came to registration back in 2016, and it just hasn't been the right from a funding standpoint or right time. With COVID, as well as from a funding, it lined up perfectly, especially with the input and the information I received from that national working group on how some agencies have utilized that study to revamp and look at their service model to meet the needs of the customers. The approach we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be doing this study in conjunction with the Southwest. So obviously, Shakopee is kind of at the crossroads. You're kind of in between there. I mean, obviously, you have Southwest service area on one side, obviously in Minnesota Valley, our service area on the other. So we're going to use that. So this will actually be very beneficial, I think, directly for Southwest to look at different connection points, as well as different service alignments, service area wide. We're going to look to examine unmet needs. We understand that all transit operates in a legacy model. This is where customers were at one particular time. This is where businesses were at one particular time. Those things move. Sometimes transit doesn't always move to meet those needs. We'll look at that and see where we're able to make some modifications in order to realign, in order to get the best utilization of our existing resources. And we're also going to look to study internal, external factors, influencing public transit, like parking supplies, schedules, route design, amenities, marketing, land use, COVID-19, et cetera. The timeline for that is on the next. We're looking, the RFP has been released. We're looking to go to the board with the award in December, at our December board meeting, with the kickoff happening sometime shortly after that, moving into what's completion of this study in summer of 2021. That's probably aggressive for the completion. That'll probably need to be pushed out based on what the proposal's coming to look at, but that is right now our the timeline that we're working under. There will be something that Aaron Bartling, our planning manager, will be setting up, which is a planning working group, getting together all the planners, represented from all planners from all of our cities, as well as the counties and MVTA. They will start talking about new developments. Obviously, new things are happening in your communities, as well as MVTA will talk about some of the things we're planning on our side, and that'll be we'll plug that group right into this particular study as it comes online. So so your planning staff should look out for an email in the next few weeks, setting out that first work group meeting up for the new planning consortium. I don't have a fancy name for it yet. I'll let Aaron do that. So that is my last slide. Are there any questions?
Richard, thank you very much for this update. Your body of your work at the MVTA is great, and we are thankful in our community that we're providing those transit options, both for downtown to the mall and actually locally. Even during this difficult time during COVID, I know the impact is great, but I have nothing but good things to say about your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments? Counselor Brennan?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. I am on the United Transit Plan for Scott County. And we listened to you the other day. I like to see the little more specifics on Shakopee. And I'm really glad to see that the 490, I can't remember what number it is, the one that goes out to the Golden Triangle is still running, because I think that took some time to get up and going. And I think a lot of what we're doing sounds like is what you're trying to incorporate into your plan. So are you planning to work with the Scott County group to incorporate some of those things that we're finding into your plan?
Definitely, because we're part of that working group. I mean, our planners are part of that working group, and there will be a Scott County planner that will also provide some assistance or some information when we start our planning working group as well. But we'll definitely look to feed in that group, because there's some good information that comes out from there. And I think I'm already on the agenda to speak. I think it's going to be a regular. I think I got the invite already to have that next presentation for you guys as well too. So as the study actually progresses, we'll also be providing updates at that particular meeting as well.
Okay. And I know that the MVTA has a flag system in Shakopee where you flag down the bus stop and to add the bus stop. Is there any consideration to have a regular bus stops instead?
Yes, that's something we've been working on. We've always had fun. We've always looked at identifying where we wanted to put the signs, and we wanted to transition some of our, because we also have that in Dakota County as well, some of our local cities in Dakota County as well. One of the things we continue to look at is, and this study will help us identify what quarters do that, but also when we put those particular stops in, we have to make sure we've identified the proper resources to maintain, to fund obviously the street cleaning, obviously the maintaining of those particular signs. That's always been the challenge, not necessarily the will to do it. It's always been the funding to make sure we're doing snow removal and things of that nature from those designated areas. So I think our first foray was obviously putting in more shelters, putting the pads in, working with the major locations. And then our next phase would be obviously putting in more designated stop signs at some of those locations that currently don't have shelters, don't need shelters, but we do, there's walk-up customers.
Thank you.
Counselor Contreras?
Thank you, Mayor. Luther, comment first in regards to the incentive for wearing the mask. I think that's great. So kudos to you and the program for doing that. And then a quick question, thinking pre-COVID, what was like the latest route you had to like any of your routes? Like what's the latest time you run on your schedules?
Oh, that's a very good question. So, it depends on the route service. I think that I know our red line service we operated went pretty late. That went after midnight. I think if we're not talking about the red line service, the Metro Red Line service, the kind of our we would probably look at our 444 service in Burnsville. And I think that runs a little bit after 10 p.m.
Okay, but sorry, maybe I should have specified here in Shakopee, like,
what is Shakopee?
Sorry.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, in Shakopee, the local service runs about the latest. That runs till 9 p.m.
9 p.m. the local ones. Okay, because I had just heard through some constituents that we needed to run some that run out further into the city a little later. So just hopefully when you do the study that will pop up, and then we can integrate that and rearrange our schedules and stuff.
Now I will say the 495 runs out to about 11, but I knew what that's coming. You're correct. We've definitely heard feedback about the local services at 9 p.m. And we did look at moving them to 10, I think at a certain time, because what we seen was business ended closed at 9. So customers who work that schedule, they may not have been able to. We just always have to. I have to go back and I'm gonna follow up with you on that too. But I'm gonna go back and talk to my planning staff about that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Whiting?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Luther, you talked about partnerships, and MVTA is, I would say, one of the best in partnerships with its partnership with Amazon. We've also been talking to a few other businesses in town, and I know we've been in discussion with Valley Fair. It's kind of COVID now, so not much going on, but I know they're looking at potential of adding service for both employees and for, I suppose, visitors. Is there anything more on that you can report?
Yeah, we had conversations with Valley Fair about a year ago. Before, this is all pre-COVID. I've always said there's some challenges with how we serve that location. Based on, I always give this scenario, and it's something I know from the East Coast. When you go to music parks, they have that little turnaround in the beginning where the buses drop off and they go around, then they go around the back. Valley Fair doesn't necessarily have that. It's a parking lot, and it's not necessarily conducive to a drop and go service, as well as from the way it's positioned, as well as too from the roadway doesn't really lend itself either to any type of pull off for a bus. So there need to be some infrastructure changes there. One of the things when we talked conversations with Valley Fair was how we could, when we looked at, because they provide, I think at the time they had more on-site staff that they provided bicycles to. So it was a little bit different dynamic. We were under the impression they were pulling those individuals from the core, but they weren't necessarily pulling from the core. They wanted to utilize they were already at the site or potentially then navigating maybe around town or back or what have you. So we got to kind of get back and refine infrastructure-wise what makes sense, and then what level of service makes sense. I've always felt as if from what we've always looked at from a transit perspective, we like a route from Mall of America to serve to Valley Fair as a regional connection. That makes sense. But that would serve their customer side potentially, but that necessarily didn't meet the needs of their workforce component to it. So that's where we have to continue to have that conversation about what level of service and what the best concept is, and then what infrastructure we need to put in to accommodate that, which COVID continues to kind of
a little delayed.
But we've been having this for a while, though. It's been going back and forth for a while. My goal's always been, that's one of the last few things, I'll say, it's not to belabor you guys, that's one of the last few things I've wanted to get done that I have not yet gotten done. So that's my hope, to get something there in short order, regardless of COVID.
Well, thank you.
Excellent. Councilor Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Winder, I hope I've got the name correct.
Yes,
Thanks for coming tonight. The local service in Shakopee, the one thing I really like about it is somebody can make a phone call, schedule a pickup at a location, and the bus shows up curbside, picks them up and takes them to where they're going. I think that's a great service, because you can't always just pick locations for stops when, maybe it's an elderly person that's getting to the doctor's office or something. So I really like that service. I hope that service doesn't go away. I think it serves a pretty large niche in Shakopee locally. The other point I would make is there's been years of discussion on the 169 Corridor Coalition, which you'll get the information, I'm sure, through the Scott County, about a bus rapid transit initiative from Marshall Road Station up to the Golden Triangle up in 55 and 394, along with a possible future Min-Pass lane and adding capacity on 169. So as Shakopee grows, that need is only going to rise, both in river crossing capacity and ridership needs. So just wanted to put that out there and make sure if that's not part of your study, that you kind of look forward in your work.
Definitely. We did assist with that. We provided some technical assistance. We've been plugged in. I'll definitely make sure we submit. We've gave our consultant, we have a number of documents from the read, but I'll definitely make sure if that's not included, we'll include that. And mind you, also too, that our Route 498 that kind of serves the Golden Triangle right now is kind of a precursor to, in a sense, of what we want to see there, what you guys want to see there in the future as it continues to build out. But I'll definitely make sure we noted that. And just to piggyback one, because Richard, I guess, is watching. Thank you, Richard. They met with Valley Fair recently, a month ago, and there's progress on the turnaround location on Frontage Road. So that's even better than what I, so there is some progress, and discussion now would be centered on a turnaround on Frontage Road, to get specific. Thank you, Richard.
Must have talked to Richard about that.
I'm happy. They've heard it. They've heard it a number of times from me. I appreciate that. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah. Great presentation, great discussion. Any further discussions?
I would just like a copy of the PowerPoint that you provided us today.
All right.
And I think the bus route schedules are out in the city hall lobby if you wanted to take a look at some of those routes.
Let me get some PDFs too.
All right. Anything else? Thank you again very much.
Thank you. You guys have a good night.
You bet. All right, moving ahead then to 9A2, contract for planning services for Sand Venture feasibility study. Peggy Sue?
Great, thank you, Mayor Mars, members of the council. If you remember back in August, this committee authorized staff to put out a feasibility study for Sand Venture. And if you'll go to my next slide, Andy. As a reminder, this is part of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We looked at Sand Venture as well as Olive Lions Park, thinking about possible upgrades and enhancements. So in August, this body authorized staff to put out a request for proposals for a feasibility study. The feasibility study requested a few things. So aquatics repairs and upgrades, the design of a new building for admissions, concessions, and locker rooms. That also looked at additional activations such as wintertime uses, improved design of the pool deck and its amenities, consideration of, from a landscape architecture component, how Sand Venture could better fit into Lions Park, and then year-round activation and increased programming of Sand Venture, so expanding the ways that we think about and use Sand Venture. Again, this is Sand Venture as it stands today. Just as a reminder of what that space looks like, if you'll go to the next one. So as we looked at the RFPs, and we did receive two RFPs, one from Confluence Design and the other from Williams Architects, we were looking for 6 high-level things: the firm's understanding and approach to our project, their experience with pools, and specifically sand bottom pools, their qualifications and the quality of their response, how much public participation they were putting into their proposal, and then their ability to meet our schedule. We'd like to have something around the time that we probably are looking to open Sand Venture again for the next season. Ultimately, staff and the team of council members who looked at the designs, the submissions that were given back to the city, recommended that this body select Confluence Design and its subcontractors. And that was for a handful of reasons. First, their proposal seemed to give a more clear understanding of what our goals were and our expectations, so that we're looking for both a combination of ways to improve Sand Venture, but also some really big ideas that might mean, new buildings or other big new amenities. Their subcontractor from the aquatics perspective is USA Aquatics, which is an experienced aquatics team that has good experience with sand bottom pools, but was also the original developer of Sand Venture 50 years ago. So that was really exciting for us to see the team that built Sand Venture come back and say they want to help us make Sand Venture better than ever. The team of sub-consultants that we'll talk through in just a second felt more robust than the other proposal, so some really talented subcontractors. The public engagement and participation felt, again, a little bit more robust and was a little bit more high quality. And then finally, we felt that Confluence and its subcontractors had a better overall knowledge and experience with our community. Confluence is a Minnesota company, but they're also who did our Parks and Trails Recreation Master Plan and has done a number of projects here in the city. And staff and the city council members who served on our committee felt like that had a lot of added value. So the project team is Obviously, the city and stakeholders, our constituents are all going to be really involved in this. We want this to be a really public-led process, but Confluence is the major team lead here. So Brad and Sandy and Hank, who we actually work with quite a lot, will be doing the landscape architecture and the planning. Underneath them, their sub-consultants, again, are USA Aquatics. They have a number of project team members from USA Aquatics who, again, did Sam Venture when it was built in 1969. They've also brought on an architecture firm. So MSR Design is an architecture firm based out of Minneapolis. You may remember their work from the Innovation Hub. They were one of the firms that submitted for that project. And then finally, Pros Consulting would be the business consultant. So, along with all of these high-level, really exciting designs, we're also going to look at the numbers and talk about what does it cost to do any of these, and how do we make it something that adds value to our community, but also makes monetary sense. So the next couple of slides are just some examples of the work that each of these firms have done. So this is some designs from, this is obviously our Parks and Recreation Master Plan that Confluence did. Confluence also designed this Garden City Aquatic Center in Kansas. This is USA Aquatics. The top is a brand new swimming pool that they did in Stewartville, Minnesota. But they also helped North Mankato turn their sand bottom pool into a traditional swimming pool in the last year. MSR Design does a number of public-based projects. So the top is a design for the Bloomington Community Center campus and the buildings that would be there, as well as a Discovery Center that's located in Oakdale. And finally, Pros Consulting has done a number of feasibility studies specifically on aquatics facilities, both in Texas and Colorado and all over the nation. So the next steps would be to notify Confluence Design of their selection, if that is what this body decides. And then we would kick the project likely off in early November. We'd like to kind of wait out the election and all of the busyness that comes with that, and keep this moving though through the holidays so that come January 1 we can start some really robust community engagement. And again, this is a pretty quick timeline, but we are hoping to have some new designs and some new fresh ideas as we roll into this next season of Sam Venture. One thing I noticed that this presentation doesn't say is the final cost of this. The total cost for Confluence and its subcontractors is $99,110, and that is budgeted in the CIP for Lions Park. So at this time, I can take any questions.
Thank you, Peggy Sue. Questions of staff? Councilor Contreras?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't actually have a question for Miss Peggy Sue, but I just wanted to say that I'm excited to see the potential that Sam Venture has and see what the options would be for the year-round use that we want to give it. So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah. Others? I guess when I looked at this, Confluence, we have a pretty good relationship with them. They were instrumental in our award-winning Envision Shakopee comp plan. With some of these other companies on board, I looked at it, and the projects that they've been involved with some are very large, some are actually very small. I think the idea of activating the spot, I don't know if there's enough tolerance for a big plan here, but I like that some of these plans were smaller and more compact and priced right to me. I'm aware of several of these projects, and I like the collaboration that we're having with several people being involved. I appreciate that. Other comments? Question, Councilor Brennan?
I think that public outreach and communicating with the public and getting public feedback is really a priority for our city. And I think Confluence really spells out that that's something that they can handle and that's important to them also. So I like that part of it.
Counselor Lehman?
Mayor, my position hasn't changed. You know, I'm supportive of maintaining what we currently have so it's operational for the next season. But spending $100,000 right now to have somebody tell us how to spend potentially millions, bad timing. It's just not a priority service that I'm willing to do right now. Too
Thank
many other
you.
priorities and unknowns at this point.
Okay. Counselor Whiting?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I agree with several of the comments about Confluence. I think they've been in our community and they have shown that they do engage the community well. And, you know, they did have some interesting concepts for the big ideas portion of that master plan for this area, which may or may not come to fruition after they go through their work. But having said that, I would make a motion to approve a contract and authorize the appropriate signatures with Confluence for a feasibility study for sand venture in the amount of $99,100.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Contreras. Further discussion? Discussion by voice vote?
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Lehman.
Negative.
Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. Thank you very much. That motion passes. And we'll wait and see the results here. Moving ahead to 9A2, or excuse me, 9A3, annexation and zoning of property and ag preservation and highway business. Michael, welcome back.
Mayor and Council, good evening. This is the annexation of 250 acres per the orderly annexation agreement we have with Jackson Township. So this was, a public hearing was held at the Planning Commission. There was one property owner's representatives that spoke. They were not against it. They just had some questions which we answered. Go ahead. So this is the area that we will be annexing in. It was the Tice family who owns on the western side, that kind of key-shaped piece that had some questions and also concerns about the business-owned parcel that's along the road that's a potential substation site. The other two properties are owned by the Bregeman family, and they're well aware of this and have some potential purchasers of this property. So the city's proposed zoning of all the property here to agricultural preservation zone, and that one very small piece up at the top will be highway business. When development is proposed, this was one of the topics of discussion at the Planning Commission. So agricultural preservation is our lowest zoning category, so nothing really will change from a zoning standpoint. If and when the property owners decide to sell, subdivide, or whatever the proposed development will have to match the comp plan, and whoever the developer is would bring that in for a rezoning. So this is the map. The crosshatch area would be the ag preservation zone, and that little tiny red triangle would be the one piece that would be zoned to business, which this matches the current zoning in the county.
But they would have to match our comp plan.
Mayor and Council, that's correct. So any new proposal coming in would have to match the comp plan. But today, for both from a tax, most of this land is in green acres, so the taxes are very low, and so it would remain basically in green acres under agricultural preservation zone.
Other questions of staff? I mean, my two questions on this is, have we had any feedback from any landowners? And you said one came to the Planning Commission and had their questions answered. My next question was involving the township. No representative, I don't think, is here tonight. Did they submit any questions?
Mayor and Council, no, there was representatives of the Township Board at the Planning Commission meeting. They didn't say anything. We had a meeting with them, I believe back in August, with their board, and we discussed this, and they're well aware that this is, as we discussed with council, this is the first 250 acres. Next year, it'll be the lower 250 acres.
Okay. Other questions of staff? If not, thank you very much. These are important steps we're taking here for the city of Shakopee to expand, to get some larger parcels, availability for development, both for part of our industrial park and residential as we move forward. So, and this idea of the city initiating it certainly is within our realm of our orderly annexation agreement with the phasing plan. Councilor Whiting?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The questions you asked were the ones that I would ask and concerned with the township specifically and property owners. But since that wasn't too big of an issue, or they didn't raise any issue, I would make a motion to approve resolution number R 2020-108, a resolution approving the annexation of property in Jackson Township into the city, and approve ordinance number 02020-012, an ordinance approving the zoning of property to agriculture preservation, a G zone, and highway business, that would be B1 zone, and move its adoption.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Councilor Contreras. Further discussion, Councilor Lehman?
Mayor, a couple of concerns. The first is I would prefer that we take property in, annex property in as it's developing. And the bigger concern is if we're going to have 500 acres over 2 years annexed in, I'm afraid we're going to end up laying down utilities across large swaths of land to get to a parcel that is developing. That's expensive and very risky.
I don't think this is about annexation. I don't think the delivery of services and laying endless pipes without development or orderly development, and certainly we wouldn't, I can't envision that we would ever have a leapfrog development at one far end and drag pipe. I would stand in opposition of that as well. You move pipe according to developers' hookup ability. Steve?
Mayor and council members, we have a feasibility study underway right now for the West End sanitary sewer lift station. This lift station would be located right around that red parcel that Mr. Kursky was talking about. And in actuality, that lift station would be placed kind of in the middle of the entirety of the parcel. So there is a possibility that we indeed could skip certain large acreage of land by utilizing county right-of-way and Trunk Highway 169 right-of-way to get a force main around that location. So we have the feasibility study about 99% done, and we will be bringing that back to City Council for consideration. And it does have options of not skipping parcels versus a way around it and cost estimation. So we will present that. But it is absolutely feasible for us in this case to actually skip some acreage in the easterly area.
I stand corrected, and I would wait for that report. Very well. Other discussion? 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 There is a motion on the table by voice vote.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Lehman.
Negative.
Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. That motion passes. Thank you very much. And we would move ahead then to 9A4, which is a text amendment to the city zoning codes and elimination of some sections, modifying some sections, and adding a chapter.
All right.
Peggy Sue, welcome.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Myers, members of the council. This looks like a lot, and it's 84 pages. So I'm going to preface this presentation by saying there is very little new in what you are seeing tonight. What this is predominantly is unearthing sections of the code that are very difficult to find and putting them in a better spot. So at a very high level, there are some new things here, most notably a new Parks and Recreation District, but for the most part, this is just rearranging in preparation for some bigger zoning work that we're gonna do over the winter. So just as a background, following the 2040 comprehensive plan, staff is beginning to implement some of these zoning code changes that are identified in the plan. So looking to amend certain sections for consistency with the plan, but then also improving the use of the code for residents and businesses. As I said, a lot of this is just reorganizing because certain sections of the code are really difficult to find, and so trying to make that a little bit easier. I think this is just a factor of as we add and add to, adapt to a growing community, stuff has been added in a way that was just to kind of make it work as we added it, and now we have some time and ability to kind of reorganize and clean things up. So at a high level, there are 6 big changes. So the first is some definition changes. So to include new definitions for uses that might not have been considered, or to change uses for different language that is more appropriate. The second is some minor edits to the zoning table. So part of that is to add in that Parks and Recreation open space chapter that we'll see here at the end, but also to change that language. As we modify definitions, we also need to modify that in the table. Then the third thing is that following the table, we'd like to add these specific conditions, and I'll show you in a second what that looks like. For lots of permitted uses or conditional uses, there are additional conditions that are required by an applicant to have that use. So for example, a car wash has additional conditions to allow for a car wash. And right now, some of those specific conditions are very hidden. They're either located in zoning chapters, or they're located in these 151.012 through 014. And the challenge with this is that some of these standards, the use doesn't actually need a conditional use permit, but to find it, you have to go to this conditional use permit standards. And I think this is just an error that is a result of our code changing over time, of us being more flexible, allowing certain uses that we might have needed a CUP for, but now we allow as a permitted use. So what we're doing is we're taking all of those specific conditions for the most part and moving them into what is going to be a new section 151.007.k. Specific conditions. And so how this will work in the zoning table is that as you look at the zoning table, there will be a superscript number next to it, and you'll be able to just click that superscript number and it will bring you to the specific conditions. It's going to make the code a lot more user-friendly as you're looking for what other regulations you might need to, for example, open a brewery. And then because we are moving those to directly follow the table of uses, we're going to eliminate sections 151.12 through 14 because they would be redundant. The other thing is that within 151.014 are the conditions for the mining overlay district. So these are particular conditions that are required to be able to obtain a mining overlay permit. And what we decided as staff was to have engineering review that, and then we determined to actually put them into 151.049, which is the mining overlay district. So we're moving that directly into the district that allows for mining because it's just a little bit clearer for residents and businesses to use. And then finally, we're adding a parks and open space chapter. And this is consistent with our comprehensive plan. In the comprehensive plan future land use map, we called out that we would actually remove park parcels from residential or business districts, and we would allow them to be their own zoning district. That as a function really just allows us to have a little bit more flexibility with how we use these parcels. And it's just a little bit clearer as you look at the zoning map that something is actually a park. If you don't know Shakopee very well, you might not know looking at the zoning map that a parcel isn't actually housing, that it's a park. So if you want to go to the next slide, this is a draft version of the table, what that looks like. So that very first red box is an example of where the table has been modified just a little bit, where we're removing administrative, executive, and professional offices. We removed medical and dental clinics, and we put that at a different spot in the M's because we want to have more decision over where medical and dental clinics go rather than a traditional office building. Another small change that you might notice through this, and as you're looking through your packet, a line through it means that we're removing it, a line underneath it means that we're adding it. So a small example would be fuel stations, where we've changed the definition from gas to fuel. On the residential side, what you're going to see is park is now an accessory use in all of the residential districts, but is a permitted use in the Parks and Open Space District. So that allows for an apartment building to have a playground next to it, for example, or a small park or open space, but parks, full parks as we think of parks, would have their own district. So some examples of modified definitions is just changing church, this kind of very general version of what we think of a church as, to a place of worship or in a religious assembly hall. So this is a little bit broader, more expansive, and inclusive definition. Examples of some added definitions, again, as we talked about fuel station, we didn't have a gas station definition, but we did add fuel station in, and this kind of encompasses, again, a broader range of fuel types. And then we had a lot of really simple definitions like park that weren't defined, that we decided we did want to have some clearer definitions around. So the zoning considerations, what is in front of you tonight, is pretty minimal. Again, most of the text amendments themselves are just moving things around, but we are going to rezone all the city parks and open space parcels. So all the residents who live within 500 feet will be notified of that zoning change, and they'll be sent that information in a letter, as well as a little bit of a small FAQ of why they're receiving this. And that is something that we hope to do in November and December. So the Planning Commission has reviewed this a number of times. We've worked on this over the summer, starting back in June. And we had some few tweaks, some things that they wanted to see explored a little bit more. But on their meeting on the 8th, they did vote 6-0 to recommend that the City Council approve the proposed changes. So tonight, I'm asking that you offer and pass a motion approving the ordinance O-2020-08, and then the summary ordinance, which will be published in the paper, R-2020-95. So at this time, I can take any questions about the proposed text amendments.
Thank you, Peggy Sue. Questions of staff? Councilor Whiting?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My concern here, and I'm sure it is of staff's too, and I'm sure they've handled this or will, is that communication to the citizens about the zoning change. You know, I envision a lot of confusion. So I'm hoping with that communication to the citizens, we really spell it out that this is just a, text type change. So we don't have a lot of concerns raised just by those notices. And that's all my comment was.
Okay. Other questions of staff? I guess I have some. Have we received any written notification or any feedback in regard to this?
We have not had any feedback, although we did have one comment from a resident who lives adjacent to the mining overlay, who has kind of just had some kind of basic inquiries about what we were changing, and generally what we're changing to that is requiring a little bit more specificity, and Steve's, Mr. Lillehog's staff did look at that, but as far as everything that's included in those 84 pages, we have not had any public comments.
Right. My concerns are that there's a lot here. I'm all for efficiency and effectiveness, eliminating. I think you've worked on your chart over the last couple of years brilliantly, and if we're adding to that, I think that's a good thing, cleaning this up, but I personally would be in favor of tabling this to their next meeting for just continued review to tackle this type of modification. But that's me. Councilor Lehman?
Make a motion to table this for review, further review until the next meeting.
Second.
Well, I was just bringing it up for discussion. I have a motion on the table and a second. Further discussion? Discussion? By voice vote?
Councilmember Whiting,
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras,
Aye.
Councilmember Lehman,
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. I do want to be considerate of staff. They put in a lot of work to this. Thank you very much. Do appreciate that, and we will see this back and just give us a little more time to review. And certainly if we have questions, we can submit it to the planning department.
Great, thank you.
All right. Moving ahead then to 9B1, our financial, monthly financial review for September 2020. And Nate, welcome.
Yeah, good evening again, Mayor and council members. Just a short presentation tonight, but I did want to review the monthly financial report as well as go over the COVID-19 financial impacts. This slide shows the general fund through September. Overall, we're trending positive for the year. Through September represents 75% of the way through the year. On the revenue side, we're at 71% of the budget, and on the expenditure side, we're at 71% of the budget. Keep in mind that revenues don't include the second half property tax settlement, which we'll receive in early December. Just a few items to note. Licenses and permit revenues are at 116%, so already exceeded the budget amount through the year, primarily related to building permit revenue. Intergovernmental revenue, which is at 290% of budget, includes the $3.1 million of CARES Act funds, which I'll talk about in the next couple of slides. Charges for services, that's about 59% of budget. That includes the community center, ice arena, and sand venture. On the expenditure side, planning and development budget exceeded the targeted amounts as a result of the small business grants that we used CARES Act funds for. And fleet is also exceeding the targeted amount as a result of fuel system repairs and maintenance. So this slide, you've seen it before, but we've received $3.1 million. Most of this information on this slide is for informational purposes that you've seen before. But I did want to mention a couple of things. Our last report to the state was due on October 9th. That would include expenditures through September 30th. Moving forward, there's two more reporting deadlines to the state. One would cover through the end of October, and then the other one would cover November 1st to November 15th. That would be due November 24th. So why I mention that is we have about 30 days left to spend the funds and report the funds to the state. Here's the kind of a summary of what we reported to the state for expenditures from March 1st through September 30th that were eligible use from CARES Act funds. The amounts are reported in one of 18 different categories, and this is a summary of the incurred expenditures that the city submitted in that report. We've submitted a total of $2.7 million in eligible expenditures, including $185,000 for September. A large portion of these costs are related to public safety, police, and fire. Then my monthly disclaimer that we've certainly put a good faith effort in complying with the reporting requirements, but you may see as permitted by the state that some of these categories change with our final report as we gain further information and clarification on the eligible uses. On the revenue side, which we're unable to use the CARES Act funds for, first covering building permit revenue, we are ahead of budget 99% through the end of September. And then as you're aware from previous discussions, we're seeing most of our significant impacts in terms of park and recreational revenues, down approximately $856,000 from this time last year. We've had some offsetting costs, part-time, seasonal operating supplies. So a net amount in comparison to last year, we're down about $447,000. Compared to last month, we were at about $463,000. So a slight improvement from last month. So hopefully we've reached the turning point as far as Parks and Rec, I guess the net impact on Park and Rec. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
I just want to make sure that when I read this report, that I'm one that I understand our community center is probably the largest part of this negative impact with revenue and all that, but I look at the month over month and I'm seeing that we're seeing the impact on a monthly basis trend down on a expense side. Is that a fair analysis?
Mr. Mayor, I think that's a fair analysis for now.
Right.
And I also think that there's a great possibility that our revenues will be impacted further in the future, especially when we look at the impacts of our tax revenues. As you know, those tax revenues will always follow, sometimes by as much as 2 years from any type of economic downturn. So, yes, as of today, our expenses are trending downward, and our revenues, other than community center and San Venture, appear to be stable. But it's really anybody that's prognosticating about where we are headed in the future. Good luck.
No, and you know, the COVID, I get that, and I'm just trying to, it just seems like the impact of it is slightly less on a month-by-month basis. And there always will be some here for some residual for a while, and I get that, but you know, I think we're weathering the storm very well as a municipality, and these numbers are much better than what I see from my peers. So, for that. But Councilor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's, you know, from my perspective, and I think Mr. Reynolds is right, it's hard to guess what's going to happen in the future, but if we have a second lockdown, the impacts on our businesses and households be pretty drastic. We don't know if that's going to happen or not, but it certainly could. We don't know where the national direction is going. Depending on that could have some impacts. So there's a lot of unknowns that nobody knows, and so there's just no certainty to gauge anything on. That's why I take the cautious side. I like to prepare for plan for the worst and just in case. So I'm being cautious. I think cautious right now would be prudent.
And we are. Thank you. Other comments, questions of staff on our financial update for the month of September? Seeing none, thanks, Nate. Moving ahead then to 10A, that we have the city bill list for our review, if anybody has some questions on that. Otherwise, we would start with our 10B, which is our liaison report. Councilor Lehman.
I have no report tonight.
Thank you. Councilor Whiting.
I have nothing to report.
Councilor Brennan.
Let's see, I went to SPUC last night, and we talked about two large issues. One is to develop a grant to cover delinquencies, and that's going to be coming back from staff with the amount of money that we will be helping customers with delinquencies in the process that will be developed. And that grant will be managed by the CAP agency. And that's, like I said, is going to offset some of the delinquencies. So that would be an application that people will have to apply for. We also discussed deposits, and the staff has been directed to come back with a policy regarding deposits. And deposits are for hooking up new electricity. What we have directed the staff to do is to define what new customer is. We have either is it a new business or is it a new line that's going into the business? And we are also going to ask them to determine an appropriate length of time to hold deposits. Right now, deposits are held indefinitely. And we're going to attempt to bring that down to a 4 to 5 year hold for a deposit. And we will also look at the investment of the funds to see if there's a better rate of return that can be paid out to the customer. Currently, it's I think it's 1.5% that's paid on those funds while they're held by SPUC. So we're going to look and see if we can increase that amount. And then we'll also determine the impact of all these decisions that are being contemplated on SPUC as a whole. This morning I attended the Scott County Commissioners meeting and talked about the Innovation Center and also Live, Learn, and Earn and what the partnership that Live, Learn, and Earn has had with the development of the Innovation Center. I think that's all I got today.
Thank you. Councilor Brennan, in regard to I was trying to follow that SPUC deposit, and I looked at the policy, and it said, to me, it said new customer, and we have an existing customer, and the service was upgraded. It wasn't discontinued, it was upgraded. And then I just found it odd that they wanted to try to collect additional dollars on top of an existing deposit of a customer. Are you gonna is there gonna be ongoing discussion of that antiquated policy?
Yep, we're going to have staff come back with the policy and then we'll be discussing it more. I think that there was contemplating what is a new customer and what is the and is it a line that's going into the building? Does that constitute what a new customer is? And that's what it is currently. And I think to me and other commissioners, it's actually a new customer because we know of their credit, we know of their relationship in the community, and we know that their ability to pay their bills. So we've established that relationship already. So to me, that's not a new customer.
Right.
You know, that's an existing customer, and they shouldn't be charged for a new customer deposit.
Well, I'll be interested in further discussion on that. I do remember that resolution, my name's on it, and the last time we updated it was actually to update to return some deposits on the school district, and I believe the city as well, to return those deposits for those style of entities, and that's right in the wording on that. But we would see more for that,
Yep.
more discussion on that. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Contreras?
Thank you, Mayor. Mine's really quick. So the equity team and the SDA team got together, the SDA held their event on Sunday, which was the people of color coming together listening session. There was, it was very, very cold. We were out at Huber Park about what, 2 hours? We sat there, kind of froze a little, but we made it. Councilor member Jody was with me there, and the feedback was great. We were afraid maybe we'd hear a lot of things that we didn't want to hear. Unfortunately, it was better than what we expected. It was great. And I know both the equity team and the SDA board is going to put a report and bring it back to council. But I just wanted to let you know that the feedback was really good. So that was successful. It was good. Thank you. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. For my mayor report, last week I toured the Hosanna Church, and their Heart Ministry, which they have over there in the old Caremark building, and quite a ministry of goods and services they have. They have a store open to the public for very discounted things for that people can use. I was amazed at the magnitude of what they're doing over there and the goodwill that they're sharing. They've done several food drives and been a big participant in helping our community for those less fortunate. And the magnitude of their whole system they have is really caught me. So it was great. Yesterday I attended the Greystone groundbreaking out at Canterbury. Another, a stake in the ground, and I think this is great. Big sense of pride for Greystone Construction, locally owned, 33 years, doing very, very well on the cusp of a record year, building their corporate headquarters here because they've expanded. A great success story, partnering directly with Canterbury. I thought that was great. Reminder, cleanup day this Saturday. I think that starts at 7:30.
Get in line early.
Get in line early. Something I brought up last meeting, the Spooky Fun Night. This Saturday, actually, you had to pre-register, is sold out. So great turnout for that. There will be another opportunity, paint and pumpkins, October 31st. Another item, it's a Saturday from 10 to 11:30. Please do register for that. And that is my mayor's report, and remember to vote on November 3rd. Next up is our administration report. Mr. Reynolds.
Just real quickly, we have changed some of the things that you can drop off at our fall cleanup event, so please see our website. Also understand that we're not allowing the big box moving trucks anymore and coming in with reams and reams of carpet. We're trying to get away from the construction debris and make this more cleanup for our residents and their properties. So please see our website, and please get in line early. We have a limited amount of time that we can work with, and if it's going to take an hour and a half to get through the line and we shut it off at 11:30, there's a reason for that. And being in line is not being in the facility having your stuff dropped off. We want to do everything we can to assist in moving the material, but please get in line early. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 11, other business. I guess I'd like to bring one up. I know that over the years, there's been discussion about the city council going to laptops for the agendas and packet information with appropriate software to make notes and doodle if you need to doodle. I'm old school and I've always resisted that. Over the last year, we've had about 3 or 4 packets like this. And I know at the city, they're doing their part to streamline that process and go electronic, and they made some big changes. And in 2021, I'd like to build enough consensus that it's about time, and even me as a reluctant counselor, because I like paper, that we as a council move to paperless with a secured laptop and the proper software to go electronic. Comments? Councilor Brennan.
I like the idea of going paperless, and I've tried it before. And I think what I find when I go to the SPEC meetings, which is paperless, is that I have to have a computer or access to a camera for the online meetings, and also the computer for reading my packet. So that's a challenge, and we'd have to figure out how to do that.
Well, I think under my idea, you would have your computer like you're using now for your Zoom meeting. And then you would have a city-issued laptop with your packet information. If we ever come back into the council chambers here, obviously the presentations and stuff would be on the big board TVs. We would have your laptop with your notes. Trying to create efficiency and be effective. Again, I pushed back against Mr. Reynolds almost 2 or 3 times over the last couple of years. And then I really sat and thought about it with this big packet, and would like to try to see if we could do that moving forward into 2021. Other comments? Councilor Whiting?
I agree with the attempt, and I have tried to make that attempt, and it just is so much easier for me to sort through the information. Now that I have to staple them all together, it's a little different, but to be able to control and go back and find things easier, it just makes more sense on paper for me. But if there was a different system presented, then maybe.
Councilor Lehman?
Well, my right eye is not able to read a computer screen, and I'll let you know how I turn out on my left eye tomorrow.
Councilor Contreras?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm willing to do the change as long as we have somewhere to make notes. I make tons of notes, and as I'm going, even when I'm listening to presentations, I take notes. So that's big for me. And I don't know if I can be taking notes as we're presenting. So that might be, I'm up to learning. I'll learn. If it's possible, I'll do it.
Okay. Our city attorney screened in. Did you have a comment on this?
Mr. Mayor, not really. I understand. I do it like I'm doing the Zoom on my iPad, but I have my computer up, so I have the agenda there, and I don't use the paper anymore. But unlike council members, I can see why council members have the desire to take a lot more notes on the agenda packet than I would. So I can see where that. And I know there are programs that do that. It's just a matter of getting used to it. But that's how I accommodate it, as I have at home when we're Zooming. I Zoom by my iPad and follow the agenda packet, like online at the city's website on my computer.
Well, I know Councilor Brennan tried it on her own equipment and software, and I know you had some issues there. I think that this would come with city laptops and the maybe better enhanced software, come maybe with some IT help, so we don't get bogged down, so it can be effective. But amongst my peer groups, we're one of like the only cities that has paper. There's still paper around. Don't get me wrong, but it's kind of like a dying breed, and I'm willing to give it a try, but I think it takes, I'd like to see every council member take a good hard opportunity to try. Change, adaptability, innovation. Sometimes those can be hard, but boy, the benefits can last a long time. And so, all right. I don't think I built any consensus. Well, we'll bring that up in the future then. Thank you. Any other business before this council? Please note that before we adjourn, we have, because of the election on Tuesday, November 3rd, our council meeting will be on Wednesday, November 4th at 7 p.m. And if there is no other further business, I would entertain a motion. Councilor Contreras.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn to Wednesday, November 4th, 2020 at 7 p.m.
Second.
I have a second by Councilor Whiting. Further discussion? Discussion? Discussion by voice vote.
Councilman Member Whiting,
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras,
Aye.
Councilmember Lehman,
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan,
Aye.
Mayor Mars.
Aye. That motion passes. We stand adjourned at 10:09.
We finally found.
I think there was consensus.
I just found something where we cannot do that. Oh, Lord.
Consensus. I think we should investigate it and show them they can do it.
I sent out 600 IT people that are.
Right.
Thanks, man.